Thank you very much to Paloma Hotels for the video. Another main sponsor we would like to thank today is Club Marvi. So let's watch the video. Big thank you to Club Marvi for the video. Last but not the least, we would like to thank Paloma Finesse, who is one of our other main sponsors for today. Now, we couldn't have also done this event without our gold sponsors, so we would like to thank Bona, starting with Bona, to watch their video, followed by a few others.
The master chefs and gastronomy professionals are our source of inspiration. And being by their side for perfect presentations every time has been our main goal for 40 years. So here's how finest presentations are possible every time. Passionately dedicated to gastronomy, we work for impeccable dining and drinking experiences. We offer premium and highly functional products. We design the vision of the future. We crown our original collections with numerous awards. We establish trust-based and sincere relationships. With energy efficiency, we accomplish circular production. We make our biggest investment in humans. Passionate work pays off. Bona makes the finest presentations possible each and every time. Bona, passionately dedicated.
Thank you very much, Bona, for the video. Now we would like to play the video from Dogush Hospitality and Retail. Thank you very much to Dogush Hospitality and Retail for the video. Next one we would like to watch, one of our gold sponsors to thank is Osman Un. Thank you very much to Osman Un for the video. And last but not the least, we would like to thank our next gold sponsor, Karaka. Let's play the video. Thank you very much to Karaka for the video. Now we would like to introduce you to the founder of this International Gastronomy Conference and CEO of Sozan Global. He is someone who I find extremely passionate about the world of gastronomy, and thanks to him, we have a platform to connect this incredibly diversity, to share our knowledge and love for hospitality. So please welcome Mr. Gökmen Sozan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good morning. Welcome, gastronomy lovers. On the second day, Gastromasa London Conference continues with beautiful and effective panels with valuable chefs and professionals. Enjoy watching.
Thank you, Mr. Sozan, for in creating this important platform for all of us here today. So before we begin our first panel, let's thank this session's sponsor, who is Pirce. Let's watch their video. Thank you very much to Pirce for the video. So our first guest today is the executive chef behind one Michelin-starred restaurants, Rijks and Wils, located in the bustling city of Amsterdam. He placed 46 in the Best Chef Awards Top 100 and also earned the Best Chef Gourmet Award for Rijks. Please join me in welcoming Joris Bandedijk to the stage about what's cooking in Rijks and Wils. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. So that's the vibe in Rijks restaurant. My name is Joris Bandedijk. That's the way to pronounce it. You almost did it well. Thank you. I'm from Amsterdam, born and raised in Amsterdam. Raised 50 meters from Rijks restaurant, born 50 meters from restaurant. I'm still there, but I traveled the world to work in, for example, in France, where I met my wife as well. And currently, I'm running 3 restaurants in Amsterdam, Rijks and Wils Bakery Cafe. And you can start the presentation now. And do I have this thing to... So I will be talking mostly about low food, which you will be seen on this screen soon. Thank you. Can we start the presentation? So if you wonder what low food means, low food is a foundation I founded with some friends, chefs, policymakers, political scientists, with the goal or maybe the dream to give Dutch gastronomy a boost or to change Dutch gastronomy. And we have high ambitions, as we should have. So we want to make Dutch gastronomy leading when it comes to forward thinking on subjects as sustainability and inclusion. And we try to act as a network, agent and platform where new ideas are created and implemented and shared. So that's low food. But this talk is about inspiration. And I want to talk a little bit of something where I get my inspiration from. And basically, one of the things that inspires me is to answer big, cool, interesting, maybe silly, maybe crazy questions that we ask ourselves. When we come together with the people from Low Food, with these scientists, with these artists as well, and chefs, we ask ourselves these questions. And we had last year a discussion about sustainability, and we asked ourselves this question, if this thing is working. Can you go to the next slide? The question is, can we produce milk from grass without involving a cow? And this could be a very interesting solution when you talk about sustainability, because we all know that we have a meat production and a meat consumption challenge in this world. And when we skip the cow to produce dairy, that would be a big step. I will come back to that question later, because we answered the question. But first, a little bit more about the restaurants. This is the Rijks Museum, the National Museum of the Netherlands, and my restaurant Rijks is based in this building. You saw a little video of, oh, that's nice. You saw a little video of the vibe in Rijks. We opened 10 years ago to put Dutch ingredients on the map, but we also work closely together with Dutch designers. The architect of Rijks it's a famous Dutch architect. Even the typos and the whole house is made by Irma Boom. She's for her work, she's world famous, and all our outfits are made by Dutch designers. So we really try to put more on just ingredients on the map than than just, it's not only about food and drinks, but also about the whole design. Part of our team of chefs, Victor, Yasha, Friso. Next slide, please. Yeah. Oh. These are some dishes that we serve in Rijks. We are pretty minimalistic. On the left, you'll find the meal value of red beetroot, which is kind of one of our signature dishes, one of those dishes that we can't take off the menu anymore. Like 1,000 layers of thinly sliced beetroot with the beurre blanc that we give like an extra boost with a Dutch-produced soya sauce. In the middle, a dish with Dutch snails, and on the right, a radish dish with a vinaigrette. Here's the second restaurant situated, Restaurant Wils, opened 5 years ago. The name Wils comes from the architect Jan Wils. He passed away a long time ago, but 100 years ago, he built the Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam, where we had the Olympic fire. And Wils and the Olympic fire gave us the inspiration of this restaurant, where we cook everything on open fire. So it's like a super casual place where we cook beautiful dishes from open fire. And underneath, like 2 years ago, I opened Wils Bakery Cafe, a bistro where we serve French pastries, French food. That's the third restaurant. And actually, Rijks, 10 years ago, we opened Rijks, and we were basically fully booked from day one. And then we renovated last year. You can ask yourself, why renovate when you are fully booked? That's because we always would like, of course, to improve ourselves, and we want to be ready for the next decade. It's also like a way to inspire ourselves is we always want to improve ourselves. And if I want my team, like we need about 100 people to run these 3 restaurants. And if I want my team to be inspired, first of all, I need to be inspired myself. So there's many things, many questions that we have, but that we cannot answer with the team in the restaurant. We basically don't have the time or the knowledge or the power to answer those questions, like this big question about, can we produce milk from grass without involving cows? And in 2018, as I mentioned, I started Low Food Foundation to give Dutch gastronomy an extra boost, or change Dutch gastronomy. I hope this stops soon. Low Food is a foundation, and we think that we can change things by focusing on 3 main topics. First of all, networking, bringing chefs, scientists, artists, policymakers together and make them work together with producers and fishermen. So we have a yearly symposium and a yearly festival where all these groups come together and talk with each other, and maybe it's a start to collab with each other. Then second of all, this is our symposium. And second of all, we think education is very important. So we have the Low Food Academy. And with the Low Food Academy, every year, 15 young chefs get like a program offered to create their own way to their success. So something you won't get on cookery school or on a management study, but for 6 or 8 months, we will take this group and bring them to inspirational places and make them design their own plan to their own success. So symposium for networking, education with the Low Food Academy, and then third of all, we think research is very important to improve. So we have the Low Food Labs. And the Low Food Labs are the place where we ask these questions, and they have always something to do with either food waste, how can we reduce food waste, about biodiversity, how can we keep our biodiversity, and it's also sometimes about the protein transition, where I will be talking about today. So a couple of examples of our labs. These are some images that describe the topics of the labs. On the left, you see grains. That was actually our first lab about old Dutch grains and the possibility of these grains. But like, for example, in the world of cows, there's like the Holsteiner breed of cows that you see all over the world. It's a big cow, etc., etc. But and everyone is growing this cow. In the world of grains, you have the same. There's one super grain that 99% of the producers or of the farmers are using. But there's a lot of old varieties of grains like emmer, einkorn, and spelt that used to grow in the Netherlands, but we forgot about them. But they have like really special values, and we brought together a really cool group of people, artists, beer makers, miso makers, and to see what we could do with all these old grains. And with the Low Food Labs, all our findings we publish in an essay. We also put it online, so you can go to lowfood.nl and check everything we did. So there's no secrets. We want to share this knowledge. Like the second research we did was about grains as well. What are the possibilities with the grains we are currently feed to our cows? And why can't we eat these grains ourselves? This brings us to also the question of today. Can't we make milk from the grass that cows eat? We did a lab about chicken. There's a very sustainable, the most sustainable in Europe, I guess, chicken farmer in the Netherlands. But he can only rid of his chicken fillets, and the rest is very hard to sell. We did a research on what we could do with all the often overlooked parts of this chicken. So we also developed, like for example, a chicken ladder, and even plates made from the chicken bones. We did a research on water lentils. Water lentils grow in basically all waters in the Netherlands. You see them here on the left. They contain like they have like a lot of proteins in them, and it grows everywhere. So what can we do with these proteins? Because proteins is a source that we really need, but we use a little bit too much of animal proteins. A lab about Okawa and a lab about many other things. So we try to do like 3 of these big researches every day. And the last research was about grass. Like I always thought that we needed multiple stomachs to digest grass. Like a cow needs like 7 stomachs to digest the grass. And I didn't know that a part of grass is actually edible as it is. And together with a bunch of creative and culinary minds, we looked for ways to prepare this tiny plant. And we found a dietitian, 2 plant-based cheese experts, an artist and 3 chefs, 2 food scientists and a herbalist. That was the group for this research. And for 3 months they tried, they tested and tasted. And the result, a collection of recipes, processes and preparations that you get to get you grazing. Grass is a topic that not many people will quickly associate with humans, and grassland already serves a clear purpose in the Netherlands, namely as feed for cows. However, grass had a great potential. It contains a lot of proteins. To get an idea of how much protein that is, per year, 1 hectare of grass produces twice as much protein as soy. So 2.5 tons of protein each year. And you would think that the cow needs this protein, but they currently are usually fed too much of it. Instead of utilizing it, they excrete this in the form of greenhouse gases. The innovative Dutch company Grassa was our partner in this research, and they developed a technology to open up grass, meaning the grass is split into different fractions of pressing out the juice, and the protein-rich fibers are fed to the cow, which reduces the amount of ammonia and phosphate that they emit. And this sounds very complicated and difficult, but I will show you that this method is actually something you can do if you want at home, but you can definitely do in the restaurant like we do at the moment. So I will take you through the process. So after harvesting the grass, we separate the fibers and the juice of the grass by using a slow juicer. And the fibers are feed back to the cow, and there's enough protein in these fibers to give to the cows. They don't need more than this. So we collect the juice, and we heat the juice. I do it in a microwave, like 2 times 30 seconds, to coagulate the dissolved protein. You need to get these little lumps of protein. And we separate the coagulated protein from the remaining juice by filter it in a cheesecloth. Simply as that. Of course, this is a small amount. And we slowly wring out the protein concentrate. Actually, we know this as making chlorophyll in the restaurant. So you press it out, take time to press as much juice out as possible. Then we need to crumble this protein concentrate. You need like big pieces, and I put this in this so-called extractor. We fill the extractor and we place alcohol at the bottom and the green protein above. This is pure alcohol. This is a very simple thing that you can order online. I did the same. It costs like 80 euros or something. It looks sophisticated, but believe me, everyone can do this, and it's simple. And now we want to decolor the protein. The alcohol helps us decoloring this protein, and the alcohol drips on top of the protein concentrate. This takes about, I would say, 3 hours. And little by little, drip by drip, the protein gets decolored by the alcohol. Actually, the alcohol turns totally green. And if you reduce that alcohol, you have like a natural color that you can use for sorbets and for anything you want. Here you see that slowly the protein turns white. And of course, the only reason that you want to have it white is that you can use it for anything you want to make out of it. We will get back to that later. So this is like the process a bit faster. This is about 3 hours, a time lapse of 3 hours. And then you have the white protein. You need to dry it. If you don't dry it, you have this. This is the paste that comes from this extractor. And if you dry it, you just can keep it for a long time. And it consists 75% of protein. So 1 kilo of this protein concentrate consists 75% protein. That's a lot. And after, when you have the paste, there's still alcohol in the paste. You boil this paste in water, and then the water will replace the alcohol in the protein concentrate, and then you dry it out, and then you have your powder. So the steps again: harvest the grass. Actually, this is the right moment. This is the moment the grass is at its best. You make juice out of it, put it in a microwave. There you see the protein concentrate. You can also dry this and do something with it. But of course, we want to make it white. Again, making it white with the alcohol in the extractor. The different. This is the dried protein. If you have that, you can make anything you want. And we made actually several really cool things out of this protein. For example, a protein drink. We made soya sauce of it. We made miso out of it. We made a really, really amazing blue cheese out of it. We made this little cheese dish. We made feta out of the proteins, mozzarella, we call it grassarella, cream cheese, cocktails, and even from the fibers, we had an artist making paper out of the fibers, and this grass has like amazing different colors. So he made like purple paper, green paper, brown paper, and actually we did a bit more research on what it could change in the restaurant. So last year we did like a life cycle assessment in the restaurant to see how much CO2 and what our impact in the environment was in both of our restaurants. And then for 1 week, we were using, for example, the cheese made out of the grass proteins and a lot of other vegan ingredients that we produced ourselves. And we decreased our CO2 by 82% in 1 week, which is pretty amazing. So it sounds all very complicated. It's less complicated and difficult to do this yourself. And if you want to see how to do it and get all the recipes and all the knowledge, you can go to our website, lowfood.nl, and all our other researchers are there as well in essays published. Everyone can do whatever they want with it. That's our goal, to share all this knowledge. One little disclaimer, and we are working on this. Before we share the, we already shared the experiments and recipes, but the usage of grass, we need to talk about that for 1 second. Grass protein does not have the novel food status yet, which means it is not approved to be commercially sold in food products for human consumption, strange enough. But Grasa, the company where we're working with together, is working on this. Therefore, the use of grass protein is at your own risk. And for safety reasons, some of the experiments were conducted using spinach protein, which has similar characteristics. But I believe that soon we will be able to produce a variety of grass that will get the novel food status, and that we can produce protein products directly from grass without involving cows. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Chef Joris for that incredible conversation. Before we begin with our second panel today, we would like to thank this session's sponsor, who is Osman Un. Let's watch the video. Our next speaker today is one of Milan's most decorated chefs. He has worked at some of the country's best restaurants and opened several of his own, including Ristorante Berton, which has 1 Michelin star. Chef Andrea will speak about coffee grounds today. Please join me in welcoming him on stage.
Buongiorno a tutti. Buongiorno. Working? Good morning. Okay, it's better. Buongiorno a tutti. Leonardo. This. Working? 1, 2, no. Parliamo da qua. Vai. It's a great pleasure to be here with you once again at Gastromasa. With me on stage is my sous chef Leonardo Manetta. Together we have been working on the concept of the coffee ground. Inspiring is my speech today. Is now I'm going back to Italian, and you will translate. Is better. Prima di tutto ringrazio l'organizzatore Gökmen Sozem che mi ha invitato anche a Londra, sono molto felice di essere qui e di presentarvi la nostra ispirazione.
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Leonardo Manetta and I would like to thank first of all Gökmen Sozem for this opportunity for this event that become a landmark for many chefs and foodies and that's it.
Nel nostro breve intervento vorremmo parlarvi del caffè come fonte di calore e anche sapore, partendo da un aneddoto nostro che abbiamo vissuto. Durante un evento esterno avevamo l'esigenza di allontanare delle api dalla cucina dove stavamo lavorando, quindi all'aperto, e in passato una persona mi aveva detto che le api non sopportano l'odore della polvere di caffè accesa. Quindi abbiamo preso degli scarti di caffè macinato e li abbiamo accesi. Il profumo che emanava allontanavano tutte le api.
So in our brief speech we would like to talk about coffee as a search of heat and flavor, starting with a personal experience. During an outdoor event, we need to keep away many bees that were disturbing the work near the kitchen. In the past, someone told us that bees can't stand the smell of burning coffee powder, so we took the scraps of ground coffee and burned them. The scent that was created drove the bees away.
A quel punto ci è venuta l'idea di recuperare i fondi del caffè e scaldarli, perché potevano diventare un'importante fonte di calore per determinate cotture. Racconto questo episodio per dimostrare che la cucina ogni giorno può offrirci stimoli per generare sempre nuove idee e che rispettino sempre l'ambiente. Soprattutto dimostra che usando il buon senso possiamo recuperare quasi tutto per trarre nuove ispirazioni che possono diventare, come in questo caso, una importante fonte di calore.
So at that point we came up with the idea of recovering all the coffee grounds and heating them because they could become an interesting method of cooking. I've told you this story to show that every day the kitchen can offer us stimuli to generate new ideas that may always respect the environment. Besides, it shows that we can recover almost anything to draw new inspiration that can become, as in this case, a hit of search.
Dopo diverse prove abbiamo realizzato queste due ricette che vedrete presto in un video. È un piccione che viene cotto dentro i fondi del caffè e una capassanta che viene cotta sopra invece i fondi del caffè. Si tratta di due piatti nuovi con cui la fragranza delicatamente aromatica dei resti del caffè si trasmette direttamente agli ingredienti, esaltandone il sapore in modo sano e ecologico.
So after a few trials, we developed two recipes that we are going to show you now in our video. It's a pigeon cooked under coffee grounds and scallop cooked over coffee grounds. These are new dishes in which the delicate aromatic fragrance of coffee grounds is transferred to the ingredients, enhancing the flavor in a healthy and eco-friendly way.
Vorrei ringraziare per questo video Illy Caffè, azienda italiana che ci ha supportato per questa presentazione che è molto attenta alle pratiche ESG e garantisce massima sostenibilità al prodotto, all'ambiente e alle persone.
So for this video, we would like to thank Illy Caffè, an Italian company of excellence that has supported us and is always very attentive to ESG practice to ensure full sustainability of the products and environment people.
Can you ready please now the video? Thank you. I fondi di caffè sono la nostra ispirazione per Gastromasa London 2024. Bravo. La prima preparazione che vi facciamo vedere con i fondi del caffè è un piccione che viene cotto cotto direttamente dentro i fondi del caffè caldi. Primo passaggio, prendiamo il piccione, i 2 petti con la carcassa attaccata e li avvolgiamo con le foglie di fico e andiamo a spennellare il petto e anche le foglie. Ho messo il carbone dentro la pentola, aggiungo i fondi del caffè, appoggiamo al centro il piccione, copro ancora con i fondi del caffè, adesso accendo i fondi del caffè per completare la cottura del piccione. Adesso copro, lasciamo cucinare i petti di piccione per 20 minuti. Cottura delle cosce di piccione per il tortino, burro, la musica doveva essere un po' più rock and roll, sì, l'avevo detto, ma vabbè. Aggiungo degli aromi, timo, aglio, no, rimbombo. Scalogno a fette, le cosce del piccione, adesso copro. Aggiungo un po' di brodo di piccione per la cottura. Per la preparazione del tortino con le cosce di piccione, contenitore, alla base mettiamo una fetta di pane, poi della cipolla brasata, aggiungiamo le cosce di piccione, stendiamo bene, si stende il cucchiaio, un po' di brodo di piccione, padano, nuovamente del pane, lo facciamo a strati. L'ultimo passaggio completiamo sopra con il grana padano e poi lo metteremo in forno a 180 gradi per 30 minuti. In modo da ottenere un tortino ben compatto. Terminata la cottura del tortino, lo mettiamo in abbattitore per farlo rapprendere e raffreddare e poi lo tagliamo a tranci e verrà poi rosolato in padella. Il piccione è cotto, adesso lo togliamo dai fondi del caffè. Adesso lo mettiamo sotto la lampada calda e lo lasciamo riposare per 5 minuti. Olio extravergine nella padella per tostare il tortino di pane, cipolla e il piccione. Ho messo i fondi del caffè nel filtro per preparare il brodo di piccione al caffè. Vado a impiattare, metto al centro del piatto il tortino, aggiungo il petto del piccione tagliato a metà, il filetto del piccione e completo con il brodo di piccione al caffè. Piccione con fondi di caffè. I fondi di caffè ci permettono di avere una fonte di calore, ma allo stesso tempo anche di sapore. Quindi prepariamo una capasanta che viene cotta sopra i fondi di caffè caldi. Iniziamo la preparazione. Capasanta pulita. Adesso Leonardo la condisce con sale, olio extravergine e pepe. Chiudiamo bene la capasanta con il guscio, quindi attacchiamo i due gusci e li leghiamo con lo spago per rendere più ermetica la cottura. Abbiamo messo il carbone caldo per scaldare i fondi del caffè nella pentola e aggiungo i fondi di caffè. Con il cannello vado a scaldare ancora di più i fondi di caffè. Metto in cottura la capasanta appoggiata direttamente sui fondi di caffè, copro, 10 minuti di cottura. Metto in cottura la barba di frate nel caffè per qualche minuto. La salsa per la capasanta, burro nocciola con mandorle, e aggiungiamo del caffè. Lasciamo ridurre qualche minuto fino alla consistenza desiderata. Sono passati 10 minuti e andiamo a togliere la capasanta. Puliamo un po' il caffè con il pennello Per completare il piatto, la salsa di mandorle fatta con burro nocciola e caffè e anche una crema di mandorle. Vado a impiattare, barba di frate, aggiungo la noce di capesanta con il corallo, aggiungo le mandorle con il caffè e completo con la salsa di mandorla. Capasanta cotta con i fondi del caffè, barba di frate, mandorle, pronta. Grazie mille, grazie mille, thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you very much to Chef Andrea Berton. Before we begin with our next panel today, we would like to thank this session sponsor, who is Bonna.
The master chefs and gastronomy professionals are our source of inspiration. And being by their side for perfect presentations every time has been our main goal for 40 years. So here's how finest presentations are possible every time. Passionately dedicated to gastronomy, we work for impeccable dining and drinking experiences. We offer premium and highly functional products. We design the vision of the future. We crown our original collections with numerous awards. We establish trust-based and sincere relationships. With energy efficiency, we accomplish circular production. We make our biggest investment in humans. Passionate work pays off. Bonna makes the finest presentations possible, each and every time. Bonna, passionately dedicated.
Okay, so before we welcome our next chef onto the stage, we would like to introduce you to the moderator for this Q&A session. She is a journalist and food writer. Please welcome Malgorzata Minta to the stage. So our next speaker Our next speaker has an MBE, and she is the first and only British female chef. Apologies for that. I'll start again. Our next speaker has an MBE, and she is the first and only British female chef to be awarded 3 Michelin stars for her restaurant Core by Claire Smith in Notting Hill. She was crowned the world's best female chef at the world's 50 Best in 2018, and this talk is entitled A Conversation with Claire Smith. Please join me in welcoming Chef Claire Smith to the stage.
Hello, Claire.
Hey, hello. Good to see you again.
Welcome you all, everyone. Thank you that you had time to join us. I'm super thrilled to talk with Claire, and probably we could do it for 4 hours, not 20 minutes. But I know you have duties, so we'll keep it according to the schedule. As you probably all know, Claire runs an amazing restaurant here in London, but also one in Australia, Encore. But I wanted to start with talking briefly about actually what you do in your restaurant to give you some image to our audience here and also online. What's the DNA of Core and Encore? And from the current menu that constantly obviously changes in the restaurant, if you would pick one dish that describes your DNA or the DNA of your restaurant in the best way, what it would be?
So Core is a British restaurant using predominantly British ingredients where possible. And we really use everything around us. As we all know, Britain is probably not famed for gastronomy in the world. And, you know, I really want to change that. Having spent 15 years of my life working in 3 Michelin star restaurants that were very French previously, before opening Core, I really started to ask myself some questions about who I am as a chef, my identity. You know, I'm British, and I wanted to celebrate British food, British culture, and really raise that up with quite simple, humble ingredients. So our signature dish, probably the one that's most famous, is the potato and roe. I'm Northern Irish. I grew up eating potatoes every day. And I wanted to challenge myself to cook with more humble ingredients, things that are easily grown around us. So some of our signatures are predominantly root vegetables, Jerusalem artichokes, carrots, onions, potatoes. And having that confidence in myself when I got to a certain age and experience in my career to be able to say, you know, challenge myself with something that's humble. I don't need to put luxury on every plate, you know, and it wasn't about buying ingredients, the most expensive ingredients. It was really like, what does this mean to me? You know, what do I want to say as a chef? And when I want people to come to Britain and visit Britain, I want them to have British ingredients and to have nods to our culture. So that was very, very important to me to tell that story about who I am, where I'm from, and what is around me.
You basically put or brought back the value or put the value on the ingredients that are not usually considered as the luxurious ones, as you mentioned, the very humble, like root vegetables that we eat every day. And do you think it's this element of personal relation to the ingredient or your story that adds this value? Because you have to, you know, explain or make your guests also believe that this is actually as special as, I don't know, caviar or a lobster, even though it's just like a teeny tiny potato from the ground.
It takes a lot more effort, to be honest. There's quite long preparations in some of the vegetable dishes that we do. And yes, more risky. You know, it was a big thing for people to say, really, you know, they read a menu and they still say, I mean, people know what Core is today, but they read a menu and they were like, an onion, you know, and we don't, of course we do use some luxury ingredients, but we mix that through with some humble things. And they will always, nearly always say that their favorite dishes are the vegetable-based dishes or the more simple dishes, the things they didn't expect could be that delicious. And it's more challenging, but it's really about, for me, it was more about being honest with myself and not having that, say, influence from everywhere else and really look inward. And I think that was quite important to me, just to know. I think confidence, or like I say, it comes with age, experience, and being ready to say, right, you know, I'm comfortable with exactly this. This is what I want to do.
So also your story is an example that the inspiration don't necessarily need to come from all around us. We can look for the inspirations in ourselves, like from where we come from in our own roots. Because sometimes it's easy to forget, like, the world is so big and so colorful, and we are chasing all those like butterflies around. And like this moment of introspection, I think it's also a valuable tool when you want to create something new in the restaurant.
I think that's very, very valuable. Probably the most valuable thing is to be able to be yourself we can have anything from anywhere, right? We can, especially in major cities like London, we can literally have anything from anywhere we want. But for me, it was very important, to tell my story and to the relationships with the people that I've built up over the years, and to really celebrate those. I mean, I know there's some, chefs in here from London that will know some of our producers, and, the relationships that we have with those people for so many years. I think it's so amazing when we can celebrate that potato grower we've known for 15 years, and we're showing everyone else that's coming, this international audience, especially when you're a 3 Michelin starred restaurant. Also, you have a lot of international clientele, and when people want them to come to your city, to be able to tell them about the people that grow the ingredients and the relationships that you have.
As you started to talk about the people, I want also to touch this topic. You opened Core here in London in 2017. Merely a year later, you got 2 stars. Now you're 3 stars, celebrated. But also fairly soon after opening your own restaurant, your own venture, one of the most horrible things to gastronomy happened, meaning the COVID and lockdown, and it had to be closed. And you did it with fairly new team, like you were just there for probably 2 years altogether, and then you ended up in this like not funny adventure. And I wondered how you went through that, like how you deal also with your team, how you keep them motivated. You just get the 2-star, the sense of all the great things that are just ahead of you, and then everything shuts. And then I think it's the moment also that you as a leader, unfortunately, have this role of keeping this like motivation in your team. And I wonder how you did it.
I have a really, really good team. And I think that, to be successful, you need an amazing team with you. And I knew I had that strength and depth in my team since the day we opened. And that's why we were able to achieve so much so quickly, because of an amazing team. But within that, they were very resourceful to be able to help us get through that pandemic. And one of the key things, I think, is loyalty. I think loyalty is incredibly valuable and incredibly important. And sticking with your team, being on that journey, is something that's really important for young chefs, as well for opportunities that open up, working with other chefs. We're always evolving, and providing opportunities for them to grow also. And putting a path out there to say, this is going to happen next, this is where you're going to go, that's really, really important. But one of the key things we talk about, where do you keep that motivation and that inspiration? And it was actually something that was really interesting. I did something with Mercedes, the Formula One team, with Toto Wolff. And we were talking about the similarities. So when you have 3 Michelin stars, so when you open a restaurant, you're gaining really quickly. You're winning lots of awards, you get your 2nd star, you get your 3rd star. You do all these things, and then you what after that? So it's very hard then, because now you're thinking, right, I've got no big gains anymore. Because you're telling your team every day, you got to put on all this work, and we're going to gain this. And we're going to and you're going to see, and they can see that you reinvest in the restaurant, you keep building, there's big rewards and big gains for all the work they put in. And then you get to a point where there's no more big gains, it's tiny little gains, and it's very hard to keep the team focused on what they do every day, to see tiny little margins now and not big gains, because it's not as satisfying when you're there. And the thing that also is really crazy, so you're there, you're not getting the big gains anymore, you have to work just as hard. It never gets any easier.
Sorry to disappoint young chefs on the stage.
Okay, that's something we have to remind my team. It never gets any easier. To maintain that level, it's the same amount of work that goes in every day without the big reward gain. So that is something that's quite hard to to keep focused on, and to tell them they can't see what they do every day. They can't see, unless you step out and step back in, you can't see it. But it's like fitness, right? It's like a sport. The minute you stop working out, you lose fitness. So we still have to work as hard every day and keep that focus. But that is the most challenging thing.
You, like in your career, you took at one point this big step. You left your previous restaurant where you gained and maintained 3-star, and you went for your own project. And what would be your advice for the people who are about to make this decision or are considering this decision? How you know that now is the moment that, yeah, I'm like strong enough to do it? And what you maybe advise to the chefs, young chefs who work with you and are about to maybe fly out from the nest and try their own things?
I think that that's like, you must learn as much as you can. It's a hard thing because not everybody can or should open their own restaurant. I think that's something we should also understand as well. You can work with chefs, other partner chefs, and run your own restaurant within a group. And have an amazing, not everybody's meant to own their own thing or run their own thing. You can have amazing achievements as a team together. Opening your own business, putting your own money financially behind it, you need to really have an entrepreneurial spirit. It was something I really wanted to do, but it is a very different pressure, especially when you're starting out. And I try to get this through to my team. It's a very different feeling when it's your neck on the line in your house, you know. And it's not for everyone. I'm very business orientated. I like my restaurants full every day. That's something that I really work hard on, you know, because the business is also very, very important to me. It's my business, it's my livelihood. So, and it's something I enjoy. So I think that's, yes, my path, and I think is a really good path, and I'd always recommend it to it. You know, work for someone, be a head chef, run their restaurant, learn how the business works, control.
All this like boring stuff, being tables,
Yes,
Excel,
but practice with someone else, and also maybe, you know, learn that and polish it out. And also, like, I gained a reputation before I opened Core, which was very useful because I opened the restaurant and we were full from day one. So there's that path, you know, or you know, stay with, you know, you can stay within a group and open something else and have that support network around you, and you can achieve things very quickly like that also. But I think that's a kind of people are always saying to me, oh, what do I do? And they're leaving somewhere, wanting to open their own restaurant. They don't have the money, they don't have the reputation, they've never been a head chef before. It's quite a big risk. You could absolutely, you do it, but it could be a long journey and it can be quite painful. But I think it's a good idea to practice with someone else first, sure. Really learn from other people.
When you started, you were fairly young, and you reached like the echelons of the gastronomy also in very young age. But now the roles are a bit like shifting. Probably you have also like 20 years old people like applying to work at Core. And I wonder if now we hear a lot about like what Gen Z is like, or millennials like, or Generation Alpha is like, and so on. I wonder if there's young people who are coming, for example, to your restaurant or applying for work at Encore or Core, do they have a bit like, do you feel they have different expectations or ideas how gastronomy, and especially fine dining gastronomy, is, or no?
I think every generation is always going to be different. Every generation moves on. And for the better also, you know, hospitality's moved on considerably and needs to, and we still need to continue to move forward and make changes. Particularly in London, I think the way that we work and operate is, we've still got a lot to do, you know, with our business and how the public perceives hospitality in Britain. There's a lot of work to do there still. But of course, every generation is going to change and move on. I just hope, and I'm sure they will realize, service levels and standards. You know, it's like, because there'll be no future if we can't. I see this since the pandemic. I think we all see it everywhere. Customer service is shocking. You know, it's become acceptable that we just might not get good service. And I think that's, yeah, it's only short term. You know, you soon lose your customers, and, you know, people need to deliver. You know, we need to deliver standards and consistency every day, and that will have to happen.
Also, I think that we go for the restaurants, of course, for the amazing, like, innovative foods that will, like, bring us, like, joy and inspire us, but it's also about, like, spending time and being taken care of and having this sense of hospitality. Like, this is a whole business is about. Thank you so much. I'm paying attention to the time. Thank you so much, Claire, and I hope to see you here again soon. And good luck with any new adventures you're up onto.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Chef Claire Smith and Malgorzata Minta for that wonderful Q&A. Before we begin with our fourth panel today, we would like to thank this session's sponsor, Bonna.
And gastronomy professionals are our source of inspiration. And being by their side for perfect presentations every time has been our main goal for 40 years. So here's how finest presentations are possible every time. Passionately dedicated to gastronomy, we work for impeccable dining and drinking experiences. We offer premium and highly functional products. We design the vision of the future. We crown our original collections with numerous awards. We establish trust-based and sincere relationships. With energy efficiency, we accomplish circular production. We make our biggest investment in humans. Passionate work pays off. Bonna makes the finest presentations possible, each and every time. Bonna, passionately dedicated.
Our next guest. Our next guest grew up in Puerto Rico and was hooked on pastry from a very young age, thanks to a childhood spent in his family's bakery. He is considered as one of the best pastry chefs and later won the title of Best Pastry Chef in 2018 and 2022. His talk today will be about teach and inspire, pardon me. Please join me in welcoming Antonio Basho to the stage.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you to be here. I'm very happy to be in UK, in London. And thank you, government, Gastromasa team, to make this happen here in UK. And thanks to all the chefs, journalists, that they support him to be here today. I'm very happy. Today, I will talk about teach and inspire. I have many restaurants in Miami and Mexico, but my passion is to teach. I think in the last 20 years, I've been teaching in more than 70 countries in the world. I love to see people. I love to inspire people. And I love to show people that if I did, somebody can do it. I want to show a video now, a short video from two classes that I did last month, one in India and last year in Spain. Please, can you add the video, please? these two videos, thank you. These two videos is something that I do every week. You know, it's not like I spend more time outside than in my house, in my city, because I love to inspire people. And today, teaching and inspire, I think we have the obligation to inspire the new generation of chefs, because today, with all these reality show, TV, everybody thinks that they want to get out for the school, culinary school, and they want to be a chef. And then that is not true. I was in Indonesia a few years ago. I did a private class for 20 people. Most of them, they was graduate for the Cordon Bleu in Paris. And I asked them what they want to do. From 20 people, 18, they're already in the process to open a bakery or a pastry shop without no experience. I said, wow. But this is the mistake of everybody. Most of the people, they do. They think that everything's easy. It's not like that. I want to show you something, one PowerPoint that I will explain something what I teach and I talk to people when I do the class. Next. PowerPoint. Yeah, you know, okay, how to inspire people? I always say some possibility, visit different country and culture. Why? When you see, when I told my students, please, you need to go, you need to visit, you need to go to different country to taste different cuisine, to see. I think this is the most important inspiration for not like a chef. In pastry, I remember when I went to Paris 25 years ago, and then I went first time to Pierre Hermès pastry shop. I was excited. I think it was one of the most important days in my life and happy day of my life, because I say, wow, how is possible this guy, he make all these kinds of beautiful pastry and delicious and with a lot of techniques. And this is inspiration, you know. It's very important when I always say to everybody, you need to see country, go to different cultures, spend money. I know sometimes it's hard to spend money and travel, but this, for me, is one of the most important things to get inspiration from any chef and restaurant. Another thing I always tell people that very important is the techniques and ingredients. Because when you teach, you need to teach the right way to make the right techniques. You want to make a ganache, you need to emulsify the ganache to have the nice and creamy texture. And then you need to show the people how to do it and inspire them to show to another people too. That's very important, because if you don't know how to make the techniques, you don't do nothing. Another thing I always say to people is to work with local research and generate beautiful things. Like I was in Bogota a few years ago, and they asked me, no, chef, can you make this tart or this? And they asked me to do a berry tart with raspberry. It's in Bogota. It's hard to find raspberry. You know, they have lucuma, they have many mangosteen, they have passion fruit, they have mango. Why you don't use local fruits? You know, and then, you know, you have the best fruit in the world, the most expensive fruit in the world, the most tasty food in the world, and you want to use berries that you cannot find it. And you know, this, you need to inspire people to use local ingredients, because this, you know, I think in Europe, everybody loves to go to South America and taste all this diversity of exotic fruits. And the people that live there, they want to use another fruit that they cannot find it. And that's very important. Another thing that I always talk to the people is to recognize the quality flavor and the art. You know, arts today is very important. It's the aesthetic. You know, you need to also inspire the customer, because we, like a customer, we eat by eyes. You know, when you see a Ferrari or you see a Toyota, you want to see the Ferrari. Wow. The same with the plate. when we make a plate, it's important aesthetic today, because you buy and you sell by eyes. I want to go to the pastry shop, and then if I see something beautiful, I say, wow, it's the wow factor. I want to buy it right away. If the taste much better, what happens? You have a customer forever. It's very important aesthetic today. I know it's not the most important, but it's very important. Second, next. Okay. Permanent study and research. It's very important to take classes, hands-on classes, course, online course, to get inspiration, because I think today, chef, without any doubt, we are like a doctor. The doctor, they're learning every day to treat many illness. We chef, every day is a new technique. The people from the frutal, people from different chefs, always they're working to make new techniques. And we are like a doctor. We need to learn, take classes, take advantage today for the social media that they show a lot of video. It's very important to get inspiration from many chefs, and they do many courses and classes. Another is watching videos, reading books. It's very important. At one time in my career, that this year is almost 30 years, I have more than 5,000 books in my house. When I married with my wife 8 years ago, she was in shock. She wanted to throw away everything and say, before you go, the books, they don't go. They stay with me. And then we managed to have one room to have 5,000 books, because I love books. I read every day books because I think that make me powerful, knowledge. Another thing I always say people is to be confident and compete in the kitchen. When I was executive corporate chef for a big hotel group 20 years ago, I always make a competition with the cooks. Every Friday, in each hotel I manage, sometimes, in one time I managed more than 500 hotels, but when I manage small quantity of hotels, like a 10 or 15, we make a competition every Friday, and we divide the pastry team in 2 or 3 people to make one new dessert every Friday. And then they send me the recipe, I see, sometimes we pick one, we put it in the menu with the name of the pastry cook that made this recipe. And every Friday, everybody wants to compete, everybody wants to win, because this is kind of inspires them to do something new. Read biography of people who inspire you with their life story and achievement. I would say, story is great. When I have a story that I never shared, only a few friends know, but when I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with brain tumor cancer. They only give me 2 years of chance of survive. I'm still here now, you see? And then, as I did, I told everybody can do whatever they want, because the passion is the most important thing in this career. Okay, creativity and innovation. When you get inspiration or you inspire people, you need to tell them that one thing is inspired, another thing is copy-paste. Some people, they copy and they paste, or they do the thing that the other chef they did or whatever. And this, for me, is not inspiration. This is copy-paste. It's very important to develop your own style. For me, when somebody sees one of my designs in online or in social media, I say, this is Bashur, without doubt. Or when I see Cedric Gore or another chef, I know it's this guy. You need to have your own identity, your own style. It's very important. And then you need to inspire people to do that. When I have many pastry cooks in my team, sometimes they want to, chef, I want to make this dessert from another chef. No, create your own. You can do it. You can do also much better than this. And then you need to inspire them to create that. Try new recipe with seasonal ingredients, avoiding waste as much as possible. inspire people to use seasonal ingredients. And then experiment with different combination, flavors, and presentation. That is always one kind of inspire people. I've been doing a lot of consultings, working with many companies, hotels, and then always we're searching for new products, equipment, to find new technique or new recipe to make our life more easy. Everything is possible with passion and discipline. For me, some people say, you are crazy, you travel so much. I just came from Hong Kong yesterday. And before Hong Kong, I was in Mexico. And before Mexico, I was in Italy. Before Italy, I don't know where I am. I was in the last 3 months. But I never get tired. I love to teach. I love inspire people. I think that's the best thing I do. I want to close in with a video that you can see many of my concepts and things I do. Please, can you put the video, please? Thank you. This is about inspiration. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Chef Antonia Bacor for a very sweet presentation, no pun intended. Before we begin with our next panel, we would like to thank this session's sponsor, Inoxan. Let's watch the video. Our next guest is originally from Sweden and brought his origins to New York City. He shares Swedish flavors to his guests at his restaurant Aska, which means ash in Swedish. Let's all welcome Frederick Berselus to the stage, where he will talk about inspiration and creativity and cooking away from home.
Right. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to put on a brief video. Please play my little video.
I love living in New York, but having come from Sweden, having come from Stockholm, I always look at everything with those eyes. So if I grab an onion, pull an onion out of the ground, I compare it to how an onion tasted in Sweden when I was younger. At the restaurant, we have sort of consciously made the decision to work with ingredients that were available where I was from. Every time I taste something, it's sort of searching for the best version of that ingredient and then trying to match it. And if that's not good enough, then we continue looking. Aska is very much a New York restaurant. It's located here in Brooklyn. I'm just trying to find that connection between where we are in New York with these memories of having grown up in Sweden. I want to find that balance between being an interesting restaurant where we serve food that is tasty and approachable, but also makes you think, also stimulates more than just your taste buds. Regardless of how much you know about food and dining and other Michelin star restaurants, when you leave this dining room after your meal, I want you to have had an unforgettable experience. I love living in New York, but
my grandfather was a typographer, and he worked in a book binding facility and a printing press back in Stockholm, where I grew up. And I have this vivid memory as a child, sitting at the kitchen table, and my grandfather handing me a piece of paper and asking me to feel the paper with my fingers. And then so the thing is, my grandfather would always bring me and my sister these packs of paper to draw on. And I loved drawing as a kid. I used to draw for a long time just as a hobby. But again, this memory at the kitchen table, my grandfather handing me a piece of paper, asking me to touch it. And then he hands me a second piece of paper and asked me to feel that paper between my fingers. And he asked me, can you feel the difference? And I'm a young child. I'm probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. I can't really tell a big difference between these two papers. And then he asked me again, close your eyes, just feel the difference between the papers. And yes, there's a marginal difference in the weight of the paper. And I say, I can tell the difference. And my grandfather gets very excited. To him, this was a big, big difference between two various objects that appeared similar. He took a piece of pencil, he sharpened it, he drew a line on it, and then one on the second piece of paper, and you could see the very nuanced difference in how the line was represented on the paper with the different grains. I moved to New York after high school because I wanted to see something different from where I was from. And inspiration has always been something driving me forward. And when asked to come here to Gastromasa, which I'm super excited about, and the topic was inspiration, I was thinking to myself, how can you speak about inspiration and creativity? Because of course they're interlinked. Without, I mean, are all chefs going to talk, are all moderator speakers going to talk about their grandmothers and their toasted bread and, you know, all these wonderful childhood moments? Maybe, but I thought the best way for me to talk about inspiration is to tell you a little bit about my story, my restaurant, how I ended up in New York, why we cook the way we do, and these little tidbits of inspiring moments that have sort of guided me along the way. Because I can almost pinpoint the times when I've had a fork in the road and chosen a certain path and ended up where we are now. The restaurant in New York is a small restaurant. We're in Brooklyn. We have 10 tables. We serve a tasting menu. I say that we serve a menu inspired by having grown up in Scandinavia and then finding the similarities to where we are in the northeast of the US. This wasn't always obvious to me. One, I never thought I wanted to be a cook or a chef for a living. That came pretty much later in my life, in my career. I came to New York just to explore, and I wanted to stay. And to be able to stay, and after high school, I spent money, saving up money, and came to New York, blew that budget. Fast forwarding, I applied for a job in a restaurant as a server, as a waiter. I did a horrible job, and on my way out, I didn't get the job. On my way out of the restaurant, they asked me if I, by any chance, had any cooking experience, which I had, and I also just jumped on it and said yes. And they said, we need help in the kitchen. So this was a small Swedish restaurant with 2 chefs in the kitchen. It was busy. It was like a rock and roll type bar and bistro. And the chefs, who were both from Sweden, had pretty good experiences back home, but now they cooked sort of casual grill food. I saw something in that restaurant that became the first sort of idea into going into this industry. These chefs had these chefs had friends coming for dinner, friends from Sweden coming for dinner, and they wanted to take care of them, and they wanted to really spoil them. And they went out of their way to create a separate menu for them, and they brainstormed dishes, and I saw this creativity and their passion to take care of their friends in a very hospitable way just ignited me with inspiration to wanting to be in this industry, to a point where I remember calling my mom from New York when she was back in Sweden saying, "Mom, you know what? I think I might want to be a chef for a living." My grandfather, probably around age 25, the topographer. He was also a runner. He was a runner, he was a topographer. He was a big nature lover. He would, when I was a child, and my mom would drop me off at his summer house over a weekend, sort of take me on forest walks. And he would walk around in the forest, and we would talk about trees and flowers and roots and things in the same way he described those pieces of papers in the beginning. He would show me the veins on different leaves. He would show me the pine needles on various trees. He would talk about the properties on different sort of pine trees, what they could be used for if you build something or use them for tools, etc. I remember walking with my grandfather in the forest, and I saw a pillowy bunch of lichen sitting on the floor, and I kicked it like a little football. I'm sure you've seen the lichen growing around in a pretty probably rocky forest. And this is probably one of the few times I've seen my grandfather upset, and he said, "The forest we share with everyone. You should be respectful of what's growing. You should be respectful of nature. You should be respectful of these plants that take so much time to grow." And all of these, like these grandfather moments, did not mean very much at the time, but they were sort of part in my memory as I started to cook. Once I knew I wanted to be a chef, I started to look for the best restaurant I could find in New York, which at the time were 4 restaurants. This is over 20 years ago. Aquavit was one of them, and I went there to go look for a job. I got a job together with many other Swedish chefs and friends. I saw something. We served 4 different menus. One was called a bite menu, where we served 14 courses. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this for a living, I want to have a restaurant, and I want that restaurant to be a representation of what I do, and I want to be able to tell my story, and serving a 14-course menu would probably be the best way to tell as much of that story as possible. And when I started cooking, I felt like I was already behind on what I was doing. And at that moment, with the 2 Swedish chefs, I just said, I'm going to keep my head down and keep moving, or keep learning as much as I could over the next 10 or so years. And I did, and I was the first one in the restaurant doors, and I stayed there. I was the last one out at night, and I just tried to push as hard as I could to learn and read and have a little notebook next to my nightstand and do those things that hopefully young chefs do. I went to Per Se because that would ultimately be the first 3-star restaurant in New York, and Thomas Keller cookbook, which is probably the cookbook I read the most over the years, was a huge inspiration to me, and I wanted to at least have a glance at what they did in this restaurant. Working at Per Se, I didn't stay there for very long, maybe 6 months. It was bad timing in my life, but I loved seeing what they were doing. I met someone, I think it was James Knappett, I think he was here yesterday. He said that after Per Se, he was going to go to Denmark to work at a restaurant called Noma. And he thought maybe Noma was the coolest new restaurant that was showing up on the European scene, and they had just had 2 stars in the Michelin Guide. I lived next to the cookbook shop at the time, called Kitchen Arts and Letters in New York. I can't remember that when I found this book, but I looked up Noma, and I heard of this philosophy where you look at your sort of terroir, and you look around you, and you go to the, you're inspired by the forest and whatnot. And all of a sudden, things started to make sense in a way that they had not up until this point. Looking at, I started looking at the New York landscape more, exploring what was outside of New York. And at this point, I was really tired of the city. I'd spent the last 10 years living in this concrete jungle and working in fluorescent light kitchens in a cellar somewhere in the city. And I was just longing for nature, and I started exploring what was around us. And when I started exploring what was around us, I really could sort of hone in on what I knew I wanted to do. And that was to somehow cook, staying connected to where I was from, and try to share those memories with the guests where we were in New York. Maybe that's the last, no. If you're not familiar, New York is sort of on the border to, if you go south, it gets hotter and more tropical, I would say. And if you go north, it just gets gradually cooler, and all of a sudden the landscape just resembles what, again, a memory of what it was like growing up in Scandinavia. My grandmother was from northern Sweden, all the way up where the Arctic Circle sort of is. That's when my grandfather met her during the war. I used to spend summers at a farm in southern Sweden where my mother had a cousin with 19 dairy cows. And I decided to open a restaurant that was, again, inspired by Sweden, Scandinavia, and I called it Frey. Frey was a Norse god for the farmers, and the word Frey means seed. Again, Frey, Odin, Thor, all those guys. Freya's brother. So Frey meant seed. It was a great name for a restaurant, I thought. The restaurant didn't work out. The investors left on several occasions. It became a pop-up. The pop-up opened. We had a good run for a few months. And as many of you know, and that sort of probably Claire was pointing at too, it's difficult to open a restaurant, to run a restaurant. It's difficult to get over the hump. My relationship didn't work out with a guy I was doing it with, and we went separate ways. In Norse mythology, the world burns up or burns down. I think Frey is killed by a fire sword. And the new version of the restaurant we decided to call Aska, the Swedish word for ashes. And to me, that meant something to grow from, everything, the energy below what you can't see. You have this black, burnt forest floor, and you have these young shoots, this energy coming out of it. I wanted our cooking to be inspired by not so much Swedish food. I wanted it to be inspired by, or it is inspired by, I would say, not even places, because it really draws on the forest, the ocean, the rocky shoreline, or the meadows. But it's not even the places themselves, it's a feeling of being in these places. So the food that we serve at the restaurant is not necessarily mimicking any of these inspirations, but it's more using ingredients, wild ingredients in our preserves, in our sauces, in our flavorings, to, in a very understated way, without throwing it at our guests, trying to bring you back to these places and these feelings of being in these places that are so special to me. And I realized that it's all in the nuances. It's all in that feeling of touching these two papers that have just a slight difference in grain that makes all the difference. And that's much to thank for my grandfather, but yeah. So thank you, that's it.
Thank you very much to Frederick Berselus for your topic of inspiration today. Before we begin with our next panel, let's introduce this session sponsor, who is Club Marvi. Our next guest is the chef of Hisa Franco in Slovenia. In September 2023, they were awarded with 3 Michelin stars, as well as the Green Star. She has been awarded the prestigious title of the world's best female chef in 2017, and today she will come on stage to talk about €1 potato, the story behind one of the most iconic dishes. Let's give a warm welcome, please, to Anna Ross.
So hello everyone, I hope you can hear me well. I hate the microphones which go over my ears because I usually lose them. So it's gonna be a little bit interactive, quick 20 minutes. There is no video. I will be entertaining you with some stories. But first of all, there is always a huge enigma about what Hisa Franco really is. You know, it looks a very traditional countryside house on the far west of Slovenia. Sometimes people still stop by, even if there is a 3 Michelin star sign in front and all other accolades. There is sometimes Italians passing by saying like, do you sell grilled meat and some roasted potatoes? Because we preserved the house exactly as it was from outside, and maybe by the soul also from inside. It is a house that is hidden in the lush forest with the gardens on the back of the house, with a pool full of trout on the left, with our mountain water, which is born just 60 meters behind the house. Can you imagine there are still fireplaces in every single dining room? It really looks like, you know, that paradise from a little bit forgotten, from the fairy tales of how the countryside was in maybe the dreams of Alpine world. Maybe a quick story, since probably not all of you know. I'm a self-taught chef. I started cooking late. When I was 30, I was pregnant with the first child. I actually am professionally a diplomat. I finished international science and diplomacy in Italy. And I started cooking because I fell in love with my ex-husband, and they had this countryside house on the far west of Slovenia, which hasn't been not a gastronomic destination, not a touristic destination. Only some Italians passing from here on by to buy in Slovenia cheaper fuel and then eat for the difference of money some great meat or maybe some roasted trout or whatever. My career has been super fast. I mean, no career should be fast. That's first message. But I think my beginning was so fast that I couldn't actually even learn to cook fast enough. I think I stepped in the kitchen in 2002 in the summer, completely self-taught. The only thing I can actually remind you about something. When I got the 3rd star, my friends from the university opened a chat on the WhatsApp saying that's insane, because as a student you never really was capable of cooking. But where there is a motivation, when there is a discipline, when there is a need, which is also very important, then things actually come true. So at 2007, I was already at one of the biggest conferences at that time in the world about gastronomy. It was in Toulouse. The conference was called Les Rencontres Internationales de la Gastronomie. And only 5 years after starting cooking, everybody was there, and I was a part of the group. There was Alex Atala and Mauro Colagreco and Eric Ripper and all my heroes, and I was there like a little girl, Alice in a Wonderland, just like maybe not even believing what was going on. But however, I worked hard, working during the days, studying during the nights, but what I focused mostly on was on getting my partners in crime to be able to cook, and those were farmers. So what Hiscia Franco really today is a place which connects all small farms all around the mountains, the river, by the river, so fishermen in the valley, beekeepers, and when you step on the top of the mountain, you can actually see our fishermen. Hiscia Franco is indeed one of the most sustainable restaurants regarding especially the legacy, which we try to maintain, by which we actually get the best possible product, which has never traveled, because when the product travels, actually it loses the essential oils, aromas, and you have to work hard to make a great dish out of that. So there are great and a little bit less great things on working on such a micro-local environment, but maybe I should tell you a small story just before going to the products and to the €1 potato. So in 2020, Michelin announced the arrival to Slovenia, and we were like a self-grown child. Hiscia Franco is a restaurant which is self-grown, and I'm a self-taught chef. So, but it has been established restaurant already. I have been already best female chef by 50 best restaurant. Hiscia Franco has been on the 50 best lists since a few years already. There were things going on, but of course Michelin just knocked on the door. So my guys came to me, my team, all young, beautiful people, and they were like, so chef, what's gonna happen? I mean, in 3 months, Michelin apparently will announce the results for Slovenia. And I was very honest. I said to them, it may be no stars, because we are so different. We walk such a unique path. We are not anyone else, we are just us, with very unique products, with techniques that sometimes I even turned all around from classical techniques, because I never did any culinary school, I never staged, so somehow I'm my own hero. And there is a dog in the restaurant, there is a cat in the restaurant. Our uniforms are actually catwalk of the nature. They are completely sustainable, made out of sustainable materials as wood fibers, apple fibers, with natural prints of whatever is growing and living around the restaurant. And I said, I really don't believe there will be 1 star, because we don't fit in, but it could be 2. So it's either 0 or 2. And everybody was, but that's insane, you cannot say something like that. And then it has happened. We got 2 stars straight away, and the bare 3 years later, the 3rd star happened, and there has been the green star all the time, which means that being unique, being yourself, is maybe one of the most important things that the chef should do, could do, to realize himself, and that could be a great inspiration and motivation for young people. So what is a positive and what is a negative thing of being such a remote restaurant and self-taught chef? So for sure, with the climate change, the negative ones are, there is pretty a list. Even in the mountains, we do feel climate change. So 2 years ago, we had just sun, sun and sun, no rain for 7-8 months. Very, very high temperatures. And can you imagine, in this alpine world, in front of my eyes, a fire just started. It was so hot. What that means to the nature, it's a shock. So when the restaurant is so much connected to the nature, it means to foraging or to what grows in a garden in biodynamic way. It means sometimes we don't even use the irrigation system because of the taste of the plants, because when the plant fights, the flavor will be so much better. Then, of course, you risk not to have product. Last year, June, July, August, through September, and even November, we just had rain, floodings everywhere. CNN was talking about it. So who can grow in flooding? Who can forage in flooding? Like, it's just sometimes incredibly difficult to work this way. But then there are so many pluses. The plus is that you have to be creative all the time, because the nature one day is giving, one day is not giving. So sometimes the forager calls you from the forest and he's like, there is no mushroom, and you have 20 different varieties of wild mushrooms on the menu, and you have to change it in 2 hours before the service starts. And it's great to be creative. It's the most important part of being a chef. I think, honestly, I was listening to Claire Smith before when she said, it's so difficult to keep my team inspired when we got everything. We have the 3 stars, we have a full restaurant. But indeed, when you have to fight every single day with what you are going to cook, and look at the sky and say it's going to be sunny or it's going to be rain, is it going to be frost, is the moon going up or down, and then you have to adapt, and then you have to work with your mind all the time, and that's beautiful, because at the end of the day, cooking is art, and art is creating. I would say that the positive part is also a freedom of expression of the self-taught chef, and of course, the freshest possible ingredient. And we are learning all the time. I'm learning together with farmers, with foragers, as the foragers and farmers are learning together with us. And it's priceless to have such great products because they have unique flavor. So here is €1 potato story, which is a story from last year. I first openly spoke about it on Blejski Strateški Forum, which is a conference of European foreign ministers. and they wanted to give me a platform to speak about how you can do magic out of actually in a place that doesn't really exist, not even in a map. And so the story goes, I have one of the farmers has a farm on 800 meters above the sea level, a young guy who actually, as everybody else, all young people in the Socha Valley, he actually went studying to Ljubljana, to the capital, and then stayed because there is no great jobs for intellectual young people around, because you are a farmer or you have a restaurant and there is not really a lot of other choices. And, but at one moment, his uncle died and he said, okay, I'll take over the farm. So he left his job, well-paid job. He took his wife, which actually was pregnant at the time, and he returned to the valley. So of course, as everybody else, they were looking for partners in crime. So they needed to work with someone. So one day he knocked on the door and he was like, I have this amazing garlic, I have these amazing beans and green beans, and I also grow incredible potatoes. And I said, great, you know, potato or a potato is a great difference. And in our tradition, in our, one of our historical dishes of the Socha Valley is actually a simple boiled potato with fermented cottage cheese, because the fermented cottage cheese is so strong that you need a potato to soften down the flavor. And so I said, great, Micha, I would like to have those potatoes. I'm taking now everything from him, and he's really sourcing us with majority of products. And so cabbages, kale, fava beans, name it, of course, when they are available. And I said, but you know, this potato need to have a particular size, because we are a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, so there is no place or space to shortcut. I mean, the preciseness is really important. And he was like, so what should be the size? And I was like, around 35 centimeters, 35 grams. And he was like, 35 grams? And I was like, yeah, I mean, 35 grams. And he's just a farmer, he's not the industry. So he was like, but this means so much more work and I need to control the growth. And what we are gonna do with the rest of potatoes? And I was like, don't worry, the rest of potatoes, we will use them for something else. But for this particular iconic dish, which is a potato cooked in a summer hay, which really became iconic through time because it brings you to a high mountain where Heidi, let's say, is sleeping and smelling all this freshly cut grass. And he was like, okay, but then let's discuss the price. And I never discuss prices with my suppliers. For me, their work, their humbleness is the one which comes in the first place. And he was like, I was thinking about €1. And I said, €1 kilo? And he was like, no, €1 potato. And I was like silent for some time. And then I said, you're not kidding, right? And he was like, look. And he opened the discussion with me that I actually never really thought about that. He was like, I know it's just a potato. And the potato looks like something that just feeds us up. We don't even discuss often the quality of a potato. And he said, this potato requires so much work, and the field is hand-worked, and there is no irrigation. So there will be, of course, maybe 50, maybe sometimes 60% of things that are not going to be useful. And he was like, but you know, you probably never ask your fisherman or your butcher why your piece of meat costs that much or why that fish costs that much. And I was like, Jesus Christ, you are completely right. And so we never discussed. There is a €1 potato on a daily basis on the menu of Hisha Franco, and I'm proud about that. But he also opened another discussion that could lead to 3-hour speech from my side. So I went researching a little bit what kind of potatoes we are buying. And I understood that, you know, Slovenia, I will go back, is one of the greenest countries on the world. Almost no industry. Yale University states that it's the 5th greenest, also by the way we treat the nature, how we know to live in a symbiosis with it. Yet we have a lot of farmers. Every house has a garden on the back, or because we mostly all have at least uncle, aunt, or grandfather on the countryside, we also have our own veggies, including the potatoes. But then some statistics came around. Slovenian supermarkets are actually not selling Slovenian potatoes because there is a profit question. They would go and serve us the potatoes from Turkey, from Egypt, from, name it, Ukraine, and our farmers are throwing the potatoes away. So I think that next time you go and do your shopping, either you're chefs or you are just housewives, maybe check where your food comes from, because sometimes even, you know, those beautiful brown packages that of course wake up our thought that what we are eating is super healthy because there's just a brown paper, or the potato is super shiny and beautiful, that makes it amazing, but it is really not so. So knowing where we source and sometimes paying a little bit more for the ingredient is incredibly important. Thank you so much and see you next time.
Thank you so much to Anna Ross for an incredible, inspirational topic. So before we begin with our next panel today, we would like to thank this session's sponsor, Paloma Finesse. For this session, our two guests will be talking about gastro synergy, fusing culinary heritage with contemporary vision. The moderator for this panel is David Constable. Let's welcome him to the stage. Our first guest discovered his passion for cooking during an internship at the Ritz and gained experience at some significant restaurants. With these experiences, he took the crown of Roux Scholar in 2019, and at the age of 26, he became head chef at the Ritz and later joined Jason Atherton's Row on 45 when it opened in Dubai. Now he returns to London to open the highly anticipated Row on 5 as executive chef. Let's welcome Spencer Metzer to the stage. He is the first Englishman to compete a stage at Ferran Adria's 3 Michelin-starred restaurant El Bulli in Spain. Before starting his own business, The Social Company, he worked at Gordon Ramsay Group for 9 years. Upon starting his first solo project, he won a Michelin star for his restaurant, Pollen Street Social. Please join me in welcoming Jason Atherton to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So, synergy, complicated word. There's a number of synergies here. There's a synergy between the two of you, the two chefs. The synergy between the two restaurants that you have. The restaurant in Dubai and the soon-to-open Row on 5 in London. I live in Dubai. I've dined at your restaurant in Dubai. You were both there at the time. Many things stood out for me, but the word Row on 45, the London restaurant Row on 5, refinement of work. Why is that important to you? How did that come about? How do you strive for that every day with what you do?
Well, I think if you look at, of course, you know, we were always inspired by Savile Row as a street. I mean, it's one of the most iconic streets in the world, not just in the United Kingdom or London. And it has so much synergy, you know, with what we do as chefs, as cooks. In, you know, you can make a soup for one season, make another soup for another season, you know, whether it's a lighter soup for the summer, you know, a much heavier cloth in the winter. And the way we cook in the United Kingdom, and certainly in London, it's very similar, right? You don't want to be eating tomatoes when it's chucking down with rain or snow in January, but you certainly want to be eating them in August and July when it's super warm outside and they're at their peak. So it's, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but it is literally a dream come true to open a restaurant on Savile Row, and you know, to open it alongside someone like Spencer, who I believe is, you know, the next big talent in this country. I think the stars are aligned and the synergy is there, and that's why we wanted that platform for both of us. And the word row is obviously because on Savile Row, and it was actually my wife, you know, who literally just came out of her mouth. She went, you know what row stands for? And I said, yeah, you know, Savile Row. And she was like, no, it means refinement of work. And I was like, my God, you know.
And you paid her for that?
Pardon?
You paid her for that?
Oh, I get that credit card bill every month.
So you mentioned Spencer, who is a huge talent. His caliber is well known here in the UK. I first met him in Dubai when he was working for you at Rowan 45. And for the Gomeo Restaurant Guide, this year he won Breakthrough Talent of the Year. We are now losing him in Dubai to London. But
No,
you're
not.
coming home.
No, you're not, because he's coming back we're coming back next month to start doing the refinement of the menu in September. So Spencer will be very much involved on the development side of that restaurant, and we'll come back and do some services, but his main role is London.
So from Spencer, you spent time in Dubai. Now you're opening this restaurant here in November. How has that been from you? We're talking about two very different countries, two very different climates, producers, suppliers are different. How's that experience been for you?
I think in Dubai, I'd never been before, so I'd never experienced the gastronomic scene out there, which I think is growing massively. I think that there's a lot of restaurants opening up. It's an exciting place to be at the moment, and I think it's going to grow massively. The restaurant Row 145 in Dubai is a restaurant, like Jason said, a restaurant which you would dream of working in. The dream of being able to cook and serve and host your guests and dealing with some of the most amazing produce in the world. So that the essence of Row and refinement of work is, not just the cooking, but it's also the refinement of service and the product that we offer and the experience that the guest ultimately has in the restaurant.
And you say that refinement of work, that's very much a team philosophy for you. This extends far beyond the kitchen. It's from the arrival, the smiles, into obviously the seating, but everything about this is about an evening out. It's about making the guests feel comfortable, leaving with a bigger smile than when they arrived, and that's of utmost importance to you, and that's obviously what you're striving for in London as well. But can you draw on the similarities between these two restaurants, what we can expect to see in London?
I mean, London's going to be very, very similar. We've created a restaurant out there and almost not a formula, but a way that the guest experiences the dining room and when they come out, and it's going to be very much mirrored in London. However, Dubai, we have to import a lot of produce in because there's not much growing there. So we've focused a lot on Japanese produce and working with Japanese suppliers to source the best that we can, whereas the UK, we're really going to work with a lot of local growers, go up and down the United Kingdom, because we've got such amazing produce here, which we want to showcase, and but with the same ethos process as Dubai.
Jason, how has your role evolved from obviously spending long hours on your feet in the kitchen to becoming a mentor now? So what's your position going to involve between the two restaurants, and where are you going to be placed?
Well, everyone knows my love affair with Dubai is long and varied. I lived in Dubai 2001 I moved there. Lived there working for Gordon Ramsay, opened his restaurant. Very different place back then. Restaurant scene at the time. Now it's full-blown, gastronomic. There was no guidebooks, no judging, no nothing, and it was, completely different. But as my role today, 20 odd years later, is more about, really wanting to open a restaurant where I felt we could offer our guests something really unique, something really different to what's out there in the marketplace. I don't want to use those cliches, but bespoke, tailor-made. I'm totally in love with Savile Row. I'm totally in love with Dubai. I've really created the dream scenario for myself where I can work on Savile Row. When I'm in London, I get to work in our wonderful restaurant in Dubai. And, for me, that's my inspiration life. I just go between the two. Spencer's dream was to own his own restaurant. Spencer becomes a partner at Row 15. Spencer will very much, over time, take over fully, 100%, and it will be, Spencer's restaurant. And, I'll sit in the background. I'll be a little bit grayer then, and spending a little bit more time in the south of France and taking care of my kids. And, and it's really using, when I worked for Gordon, I was there right at the beginning, right at the fledgling when Gordon was on the verge of becoming this massive global superstar, and I got to see that with my own eyes. And although my path's very different, I want to use my knowledge to help Spencer build his dream. Use my knowledge, not have to make the same mistakes. Of course, Spencer's dream is to own a world-class restaurant, and together we're going to try our hardest to realize that dream, and teach Spencer the ins and outs of rent reviews and all the boring stuff what people don't get much knowledge on as chefs. We understand how to make a beautiful sauce or create the perfect dessert, but when the rent review comes in, most people get their eyes shuttered, and it can cause you to go out of business. Well, I get to pass all of that knowledge down to someone like Spencer and hopefully inspire him to breed the new next generation of chefs.
I'd like to go back to something you said at the beginning and to that word synergy again, and ask you both the same question. But how important is it for you to be back in London, opening a new restaurant in London, but also specifically on Savile Row? Style, I know fashion is an important thing to you, but the Savile Row is so iconic. Would you have considered other venues? Was it always going to be Savile Row? Was it there or nowhere? Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind that and how important it is for you to be in that iconic location?
I think in a city like London, location is crucial. It can really kill a restaurant. I mean, in a fine dining location also, it's also crucial, I think. And I don't know, it's weird, right? I mean, you either do believe in fate or you don't, and I don't question it either or. I do believe in fate. Middle of COVID, there was a law in the UK, which a lot of people in this room won't know what that was, and the government was terrified that city centres were going to become obsolete with people working from home, and they created a clause where you could, any shop what went bust or bankrupt during COVID, anybody buying that lease or buying the building could apply to have A1, A2 or A3, which means it could be a shop, a restaurant, a bar, a takeaway, whatever you wanted. Now that's very unique. That's never been done before in the history of Great Britain. So when Kilgore, the tailor shop, went bust, me and my wife bought the lease. We had no idea we were going to be able to turn this into a restaurant, but the dream was always to open a restaurant on Savile Row, if we could. So we took the gamble, we bought it, and then we applied for the A3 license. And then it took us 2 years to get it through. And then, the conversation with Spencer started not long after that. I made a list of 5 people I wanted to talk to in the United Kingdom, because I knew that we had to have the next generation of talent alongside us, because, I think, maybe another 7 to 10 years left of cooking in me, and then the knees are going, hip replacement, all that type of stuff, and I just don't want to build a restaurant for that short space of time. I want this restaurant to be there for as long as it can be, and have someone like Spencer grab the reins and run with it, really. So Spencer was my number 1 chef I spoke to, and we had a lot of coffee. We drank a lot of coffee for over 18 months, and then we agreed, and the rest is hopefully going to be history.
What about you, Spencer? It must fill you with immense pride to not just have an opportunity like this, but in the centre of London, in a street like Savile Row. What does that fill you with? Is it daunting for you? Are you filled with excitement? How are you feeling about the new opening?
Yeah, I think you'd be crazy if you weren't nervous. You'd be crazy if there wasn't a lot of anticipation. Of course, we're going on a journey now to create a restaurant which hopefully is successful and iconic, and something that we can both be so proud of. I mean, it's going to be a long journey, but to have a restaurant on Savile Row, I mean, even when I walk down the street, this morning, it just gives you goosebumps. And I think there's never been a restaurant on that road before, which is history in the making in itself.
And how have you been received? There are businesses, family businesses, many of them, businesses that have been there for hundreds of years. What's your reception been like with your new neighbours?
Well, there's a thing called the Savile Row Society, which could have put a stop to it, because the street's protected for obvious reasons. And, we had to, and that's Turnbull and Asser, Richard Anderson, the Sweeney boys, all of that type of stuff. And we had to present to these people the business plan, not the numbers, but what it was going to be. and, using words like bespoke, tailor-made. If this was going to be a restaurant where we slung hundreds of people for it, and there was going to be noise outside and beer bottles clinking along the street, then this was never going to fly. But the fact that actually this is a real showcase, where people who really respect tradition, and we want to use a lot of British tradition in the cooking, as well as it being modern, it will lean back into tradition a little bit, and the way the storytelling will be done at the restaurant, all that went in our favour. Bennett and Witch, who make beautiful leather goods, are involved with the menus. 4 different tailors are making the uniforms. Even when you go out for a cigarette, Richard Anderson's making the smoking jackets. So you have a traditional smoking jacket when you go outside in the cold weather, so you don't have to get your own jacket. There's a million things we've got involved with the street to make it. Zelma also now in Copenhagen, who makes the most beautiful glassware. We've sent her cotton, what you stitch up from the row, and she's intertwined it in the glass for the drinking glasses. So lots of little details like that, what sort of tell the story of the street, I suppose, really. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I don't think we have enough time to draw on the comparisons between tailoring and being a high-level chef, but there are many. And I do notice in the time that I've known you, a change in language and vernacular, how you can draw these comparisons between the refinement, the wording you're used. Is that something you've seen change in you? How being on an address like Savile Row is making you look at the finer details more and examining things in clearer details?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think Row 45, you're actually starting your journey of the menu in the cutting room, so where they actually used to cut all of the suits for Kilgore. And then you go, I'm not going to spoil it for people because I don't want to give too much away, but you go through various stages of the old tailor shop. And I just think that type of stuff is so British, and I just think it's just a wonderful thing to be part of, right?
I think for you, Spencer, as well, is having that background with the Ritz, which is steeped in tradition as well. It seems to be your path here to celebrate, the best of British. But you're doing something completely contemporary now that's never been done before, opening a restaurant on this address. How important is that for you to be sort of, alongside Jason, but your name up there? Because this is, there's a lot of eyes going to be on you both, and opening new restaurants at this level can be a difficult thing to do in a city like London.
No, I think the world will be watching, but it's something that we both truly believe in, and it's an honest project where it's all about the guest and their experience. There's no, coming from where cooking at the Ritz, there was a lot of history. There's a lot of history in the road, but there's none in the restaurant. So to actually go on a journey to make history and to make something that one day we'll look back on and go, wow, that was an incredible journey, and it flies. It's something that excites me, like to be able to write history in a new address, in a new restaurant, and go on a new challenge, a new adventure.
So how are you drawing inspiration, to get back to the subject? So is it predominantly from there, being on, next to these tailors? Are you inviting any of them to try the food for their input? Who's been involved on this? Or is it, you're a standalone business? How's it been with these neighbours to get them on board? Is it something that their input is of value?
I think, look, if we didn't want to be part of, the history and, the new storytelling of the street, there would be no need to be there, right? I mean, you go to Richard Anderson, we're under no illusions, right? If you want to get a suit made on Savile Row, you're in for £4,000 or £5,000, right? It's a journey. You don't just go and buy a suit off the peg, put it on, and pay for it and leave. You have several fittings. You go back, and most people get 1 or 2 suits made their entire life, and they last forever, right? So it's a real aspirational thing. And we want the restaurant to be, all right, don't worry, it's not going to cost £4,000 or £5,000, but we want people to, aspiration is to go to have a tasting menu at Row 15, and we don't expect people to come once a week. It's not about that. It's about coming. Our job will be every season to come up with a new menu, but very strictly based around the seasons and the micro seasons of our great land. And I suppose really, if an American couple checked into Claridge's and they said, to the, to the concierge, we want to go to a fine dining restaurant, and I hate the word fine dining, but, what really represents Britain really well, where would you recommend? I don't think there's a greater street to open a restaurant, and we really want to try and honour that tradition, but at the same time being modern and forward-thinking,
So that idea of being a place that represents Great Britain, this is at the core of everything, is it? Because I know it's a big part of what you're doing in Dubai, but at the same time, Dubai is also about putting on the plate what is best. So there's a lot of Japanese influence there as well. And is that going to relay back to London as well? Or is it purely British products? Are you still looking to Japan? Or what can we expect from the menu?
I think the main goal is whatever we feel is the best taste will go on the plate. So there's no point in putting something that might come from Britain that's not as good as, I don't know, white truffles coming from Italy or whatever it may be. So it's about, showcasing the growers, the farmers, the fishermen, the amazing people. Like the UK's got honey. We're looking at all these different honey suppliers at the moment of finding who's got the most amazing tasting honey. But it's all about the quality of the product. So it's not necessarily has to be 100% British. It will be what we feel is the best product we can give to our guests at that time. And as soon as the season changes, then we will change that dish. For example, British strawberries. As soon as the quality drops, we'll have to change that dish and move on to something else.
And this all goes back to that refinement of work. And I think that's so important because maybe a lot of people didn't necessarily know that to begin with. I didn't. I assumed Rowe did pay reference to Savile Row here. But that refinement of work is of utmost importance to you. This is something that you're doing as a team. It's a fairly small team for a restaurant. The new restaurant is not a big space. I think 28 covers.
28 seats, yeah.
28 covers as well. So in terms of this refinement of work, how do you ensure that you maintain that and it's kept at a high level with your team?
Because, it's quite simple, really. I'm even at 52 years of age, I'm still in the kitchen every day. It's really important for me to work alongside the team, myself and Spencer, constantly pushing the status quo, right? And we're not doing that because we want to be the best restaurant that's ever lived. It's not about that. We want to be the best we possibly can be, and the world's going to be watching what we do because of the synergy of what we're putting together and the team we're putting together. But I'm a big fan of Denzel Washington, so excuse the quote. But if your dreams don't scare you, then your dreams aren't big enough, right? And it is. I'm terrified, right? Even at my age, at 52, I'm terrified, but at the same time, equally so excited about this project that I can't sleep at night at the moment. And I think what a wonderful way to live your life, that you can still go to work every day and be constantly pushing yourself as a team to be better, right? I mean, that's a pretty cool space to be in, right? Rather than just going to work and, churning out the same stuff because that's what people want to eat, that's what people want to do, and that's great, but we want something different, and we want to see how far we can really push the narrative, what we've created for this restaurant.
So it feels to me like everything you've been through, your restaurants, your experiences has led to this. There's certainly a lot of going into this. I'm sure financially there is, but a lot of time and effort. You found the talent you were looking for. What's the plan for Row on 45 in Dubai? Is that going to pair alongside Row on 5? Is there going to be, are you training teams in one place, going to the other? Because these locations couldn't differ more.
I mean, look, it's really simple for me. The only two restaurants that I will cook in is Row on 45 in Dubai and Row on 5 in London. That is it. If you want to judge me as a chef, eat in those restaurants and judge me, by all means. Go ahead, judge me. If you judge me as a restaurateur, eat at City Social, London, Dubai, soon to come Riyadh. I'm a restaurateur. I run them as a restaurateur. It's very different, it's a very different role, it's a very different job. But, the way we've set up the two restaurants, London and Dubai, is, Spencer is chef patron of the one in London, alongside myself, and Spencer will help with the development, like he's been doing while we've been there. Dan Burke's been with me 10 years, superstar chef, amazing cook. He's always been the chef de cuisine of the one in Dubai from the very beginning. Babu is head chef, and then we've just taken on the senior sous chef from Oceana. So we take that very top tier of our restaurants very seriously, you know, and they have to be serious talent, next generational talent, for us to be able to maintain and push those teams to where we want to be.
I think before we finish, I'd just like to ask Spencer a final question about your ambitions for this restaurant, your ambitions for yourself, because you come from great pedigree, you spent time in Dubai now, and you've been rightly recognized for your work in Dubai. But this big opportunity in London is a different level. You know, what are your aspirations for this restaurant, your ambitions? Because it's a very, very unique opportunity, and I'm sure there's a lot of young chefs that are envious of this restaurant that's been put before you. So what do you hope for your diners to take away when they visit Rowan 5?
I think for me, when I go and eat in a restaurant and I walk out, and there's very few restaurants in the world that I have, and I walk out and I had like goosebumps, like couldn't sleep, thinking about it, talking about it. It just was a different experience of life. And like to be able to impart that onto guests and give them a journey and give them our time, our attention, cook them delicious food, serve them delicious wine. You know, that for me is the greatest gift of hospitality. It's, you know, there's so much for me to learn in business, in finance, and everything else, which I've got the opportunity now to do, which is fantastic. But to welcome guests into our restaurant like it's our home. Well, it is our home, and to give them an experience and to give them a lasting memory, that for me is the most important thing, and that's the ambition of the restaurant.
Thank you. So Rowan 5, November 1st this year. Jason, Spencer, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Jason Atherton, Spencer Metzger, and David Constable. So for our next panel today, we would like to thank this session's sponsor, Inoxan. Let's watch the video. So, our next guest combines his Mexican roots with British ingredients at his one Michelin-starred restaurant called Col. He also entered the world's 50 best restaurants list and earned the Best Chef Award from GQ Food and Drink Awards in 2023. Today, he will speak about limitations as our source of inspiration. Join me in welcoming Santiago Lastra.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, amazing. So, well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm very excited to have a conference in London, hometown, because it is such an incredible and exciting city for food, you know? So 10 years ago, I came here for the first time, and I remember I saw this super multicultural, beautiful, creative dining scene, and it's just getting better and better, not only in London, but also in the whole United Kingdom. So it's really great to be here and be part of this lineup and this conference. So thank you, Gokmen, wherever you are, and all the team from Gastromasa to bring it to London, and everyone to come here from everywhere in the world. So we're gonna chat about. We're gonna chat a little bit about inspiration. Inspiration is very is directly linked with creativity. So for me, it's been really difficult to, like, as a chef, I started working when I was 15, and it was really difficult to basically come out with something, you know? I remember 2 years in this Italian restaurant when I started working, and I was leaving, my last day, everyone left, and then I took a plate. And I consider myself as a very creative person. I used to, you know, like draw, like write songs, you know, like everything. I guess everything that a kid does when you're like 14, 15. And I remember I took the plate out, and I was like, okay, well, I've been working in food for 2 years, you know. I've been learning, I've been reading all the books that I could. I've been working every day here, going to school, finishing at 3 p.m., starting in the restaurant at like 3:30, and finishing at 1 in the morning, every single day for the last 2 years. I've been reading in my like little time off all the books of Italian cooking and like modern cooking little booklets that I could find, and it's my world. So I'm sure I can come out with a dish, you know? And I took the plate out, and it was zero, like completely blanked. Nothing came out in my head. So I wasn't able to do anything that, like, kind of like, I wasn't able to create anything or have like any original idea. And then I did the same thing with the next restaurant that I went to work in Spain, this one Michelin star restaurant. And after being working there again for 2 years, learning so much about seasonal food from the north of Spain, and working in this like high-level cooking in 2008, in the middle of this like crazy revolution of modernist cuisine and like all these restaurants like El Bulli and Mugaritz and Noma, all these places were like starting to make this big revolution around the world. And I took the plate out again, and nothing. It was nothing. I was like, man, I've been working for 4 years, and I can't create anything. And I decide to devote myself to craft and a job that will not be. I kind of like find my place in the food industry or the food world, let's say, and I understand that I was chef de partie, you know. So I will say, whatever this chef tells me to do, I'll do it. I'll say, yes, chef. I'll put my head down, and I will try to make it as fast as possible and to get yelled the less as possible. And I did that, and I tried to chase innovation, you know? So I'm a little bit obsessed with ChatGPT at the moment, and I always been like quite really driven in terms of trying to understand what is the new thing, you know, in everything. And in food, it was obviously my life and still my life, and for a long time it was this quest of, okay, what's the new thing? So in that time, Spanish food and El Bulli, Mugaritz, all these places, they were the new thing. So I moved to Spain. I worked there in Mugaritz, and for 2 years I was part as a CDP and then part a little bit of the research program, like helping out creating the dishes. And then they say, you know what, Spanish food is not the new thing anymore, you know? Like the new thing is Denmark, the new Nordic cuisine, you know? So I was like, okay, cool. So I took a plane and got like whatever I had in my pocket. I don't know, it wasn't a lot, believe me, and moved to Copenhagen and find this place in a hostel and start working in Copenhagen. And I remember my first day of work in this place, now closed, that it was called Manfred's, and I was doing like just a little trial there, and the guy, just like this big Nordic guy with like big beard, big Viking guy, was like, so why are you here in Copenhagen? And I was like, hey, well, I'm here to, you know, to learn about the new thing, you know, the new Nordic cuisine. And he's like, new Nordic cuisine, that's old, you know, like the new thing is Mexico, you know, Latin American food, you know, like Mexican food. And it's just, and actually before Spain, I forgot to say it because I also did the same thing in France. So when I was 18, you know, moved to Paris, and it was the same thing, they sent me over to Spain. So then it was like, you kind of like bounce around, as soon as you know what is new, it's old. So I realized that the only way to find innovation or to touch it, or at least be close to it, is to try to create it yourself, you know? And that is, and innovation and creativity is linked with inspiration. So I think one of the most fascinating things about this conference is this topic of inspiration, because you can't be inspired if you cannot do anything with that inspire you, you know? So it was something broken in me, you know, like, yes, I had these like nice walks, and yes, I have, maybe I go to the museum, I see things that are really nice, but then every time that I was taking that plate, it was nothing that was able to translate that inspiration, you know? I was feeling really inspired, really tired as well, working all these restaurants, but it was something missing. And I think in any creative work, for you to be able to build that bridge, you need obviously experience, and you need to understand, for you to understand what you're doing, but also you need to find some sort of parameters that could help you to bring that inspiration and like kind of dreams to reality. And that bridge is what I'm going to talk about today. You know, like after 10 years of being a CDP, something changed in my mind. From one day to another one, I will see things. I have this dream of that I was eating an apple. And I was sleeping, and I didn't take anything, or I wasn't drunk or anything the night before. It was just like normal day after work, go to sleep. And then suddenly, I was eating this, it was green apple, quite sour, sweet. I could feel the flesh and the skin and the juiciness of the inside of this apple. And I woke up, and suddenly, I could see flavors. And that it was a turning point in my career. I guess it was something that it was in my mind, like just like something kind of maybe psychological that changed everything. Because when I went back to work, then I didn't see ingredients. I saw aromas and flavors and textures and endless combinations of things in my chopping board. And then it's kind of like, it's something that just switch in you. And I guess there's a lot of incredible chefs here that they are very, very creative, that I think they can relate with me on this, because there is a moment in your career as a chef that suddenly everything just changes, you know? But then, when you have that, it's still not enough. So, sorry, it's a long introduction. So we're gonna start talking about how can we use limitations as our source of inspiration, okay? So, we found this quote from the composer Igor Stravinsky, that we believe it represents what we do at Cole as the core of our creative process. You know, so I'm gonna try to read it. So, the more constraints one imposes, the more one frees oneself. And the arbitrariness of the constraint serves only to obtain precision of execution. So, apart from being a complicated quote to read for me, I guess it's like, it means that we need a framework or guidelines to be more meaningful with your ideas, basically, you know? In our daily lives, in our daily lives, we are exposed to so many things. Experiences, nature, places, moments, information, research, social media, art, seasonality, dreams, and to get inspiration and for us to be truly, truly creative, it's very important to experience all this, you know? It's like these songwriters that they need to break up with their girlfriend so they can create a breakup song, you know? So you need to go out there, nature, you need to go to restaurants, you need to see what is happening, to live your life, you know, to be exposed to inspiration. But it could be quite overwhelming and quite hard to materialize, you know? So sometimes to come out with something that makes sense. And it doesn't matter how creative you are and how much are you exposed to have all these things. For you to be able to come out with a powerful messaging, you need structure, you know? And for us, that structure are limitations, basically. At Cole, we represent Mexican flavors using British seasonal ingredients without using avocados or limes or tropical fruits or anything that doesn't grow naturally in the UK. And the only things that we bring from Mexico are chilies and dry corn. So that's a very, very specific framework. From all the cuisines in the world, we choose to represent Mexican food. And from all the ingredients around the world, we choose to use British ingredients. And the curious thing is that I came out with this through experience, you know? So choosing to move basically to London, based on different factors. So here in London, we have up-and-coming culinary scenes. We have open-minded guests and culture. So it's the place that I've been that has so many offerings from, like if you're gonna have the most amazing Thai food, you're gonna have the most amazing Japanese food, the most amazing Indian food. You can have it here, you know? And also the familiarity that the UK has with Mexico, because the UK is the second country that we get more tourists from and more visitors in Mexico after the US. Sorry about that. And the fact that I wanted to find a place with a different climate, like something different, because I didn't want to open the restaurant in a place that is too similar as Mexico in terms of ingredients. Like if I will open in Italy or in Spain, you can still like grow avocados and limes and citrus and stuff like that. So I wanted to be in a place with a very, very different weather to basically force myself to create something new. So in summary, in Cole we have these three limitations, right? So the ingredients, that we only use local seasonal ingredients and not from Mexico. The culture, that we want to, we are representing Mexico, you know, in the UK and in the world. Oh, and the arbitrary, that is all these decisions that we make and the things that we choose as our personal point of view, basically. So we're going to start with the ingredients. So the ingredients, as we said, we are limited by ingredients, right? So what we have to do is to find substitutions. So if we cannot get an ingredient from Mexico, we need to find something to replace it. And to be able to find something to replace it, we do research. So what do we grow here that have tastes of coriander, or that you can use to wrap things instead of banana leaves, you know, to use seaweeds, for example. Or if you cannot get pumpkin seeds or peanuts, we can toast hemp seeds in a different way, you know. So we do the research to find these substitutions. And then after that, what happens is that we come out with something quite exotic and rare by seeing the ingredients with a different lens, with a different eyes, so with a fresh pair of eyes. As we said in Cole, we said that there is like this kind of like Mexican explorer that is in this island and bring a bag of chilies and corn with him. What he will cook, or what they will cook, this little tribe of explorers in this island, you know, with the local ingredients, you know. So at the end of the day, the result of the dishes and result of the techniques, they sound quite exotic and rare. And if these exotic and rare techniques and ingredients and preparations work, and people actually like what we do, and we like it, then it ends up in something unique, you know? And then the other limitation that we have is culture. So Mexican culture is our limitation, right? So one of the things that we say when we create a dish is that it needs to taste Mexican, you know? So we need to have like a very specific reference of what Mexican taste is in different regions of Mexico, in different preparations. Also by making research in Mexico and creating a memory, like a sensory and kind of like a taste memory by going around there and everything, but also understanding what Mexican flavor is. That it needs to be spicy, sour, umami, complex. It needs to have this alkaline flavor of the masa or of the tortilla. You know, so it's a there is a very specific, there's like these anisey notes, you know, like for example, like in like the herbs that you use in a taco or in different preparations, you have to have a specific type of herbs, you know. So it needs to taste Mexican. Then obviously, then we also move into tradition. So every dish that we do in the restaurant, it needs to have heritage. of Mexico. So it needs to tell you not like a big, long story, but at least have something that represents Mexico in terms of tradition. It can be a technique, it can be a preparation, it can be like a specific time of the day or time of place where this preparation takes form. So tradition is very important. And then integrity. So integrity is also like, integrity is kind of my job in Col, because I need to make sure that we don't mess too much with tradition and we respect it, you know? Because there is a limit of how far can you go when you are representing another culture, you know? Because as you all know, or you might know, when you're outside your country, you have a weight. Like whatever you say is gonna be Mexico. Like I'm Mexican, so if I'm somewhere in some sort of bar in whenever, Bali or something, and I say something, that's Mexico, you know? And I've been living out of Mexico for 17 years, and I feel that responsibility still to this day, and with what we do, you know? Because we have an audience and guests that they will eat what we do, and we have that responsibility of like kind of protecting the integrity of the food that we do, you know? And then the next limitation that we have is the arbitrary, you know? So arbitrary is actually a very important limitation, because if you only take the first two limitations that we have, let's say the ones that I said, that I remember, no, I'm joking, ingredients and culture, you have a block, right? But come on, that's really, like, really broad, you know? Like, again, a really, like, bad example of my ChatGPT thing, but it's just, if you ask, oh, make me a dish, because I try, make me a dish using Mexican inspiration and British ingredients. And then the first thing was like, burrata with jalapenos. And I was like, come on, I need a little bit more than that, you know? And that is something interesting, because at the end of the day, if you only have these two things as a base, it will be quite broad. So what you have to do is to trim that up. So imagine that ingredients and culture, Mexican inspiration and British ingredients is a big block, right? It could be anything. It could be Spanish inspiration, British ingredients. It could be Japanese ingredients with Thai inspiration. You know, it can be anything. You know, like you can just think about whatever concept that you want to create. But that's a block. So then from that block, it could be anything. So what it makes your concept, or what it can make your, let's say, your creativity or your inspiration truly unique, is to trim it with your own experience and your own point of view, you know? Because you have a specific choices that you make in your life, you know? And we could make Col, as if you talk about craft, for example, we could make Col focus on technology and not focus on craft. So we could say, like, okay, all the plates are made by this 3D printing machine that we design for you to be feeling that you're eating Mexican-inspired food with British ingredients in space, you know? But we decide to focus on craft. So that is one slice that you take out from this big block to say, like, actually, Col is going to be focused on craft, you know? And then from there, each dish will have a specific decision that you have to make, you know? So what do you like the texture to be? Are you gonna peel the piece, or are you gonna leave the piece whole? You know? Are you gonna add more fat to the tamal to make it like creamier, or do you want to add less fat, so even though it's more dense, you have a lighter experience when you're eating the tasting menu? Are you going to use dairy? The dairy is a British ingredient, so we're going to use lots of butter, or we're going to leave it without dairy, you know? So it's a lot of decisions that you are making along the way, that you're trimming things from this big block that is your parameter, like your overall parameters of creativity, to come out with slowly with things that are more unique and like sharpen it. And that comes down with the philosophy, that comes out, that come also from the dreams as well. So then you also could have like random ideas from dreams. You know, that is something that I will speak a little bit more later. But when you are dreaming, you could have inspiration, you know? So this is when you go to, as I said, when you see a shape, you could have inspiration. You know, I really like that shape. Or maybe, well, I'm talking about like shapes of objects. And also like maybe if you are eating nigiri in Tokyo, and you like the texture of the soft rice and the raw fish, that could be an inspiration, the texture, you know? So then it can be, like, inspiration can come from so many different things, but then the interesting thing and the arbitrary limitation is that you limitate yourself by your own choices and what you like, you know? And I think that is something that maybe it sounds a little bit selfish, and at the end of the day, obviously, it's not what I like. It's what Cole likes, you know. So I think there is a moment where you need to detach yourself from the concept, you know. At the beginning, you are there, you know, with the flag and the sword and the horse, you know. And but then there's a moment where you set up these parameters. And you need to leave it grow, you know? You need to leave it grow and evolve. So then, even if you probably don't think about something that you like, but someone else that understands the whole concept, you have to embrace that, you know? And then it becomes a collective limitation, you know? Obviously, someone needs to make the last decision, you know? But even though I have the last decision, we ask for feedback from our general manager, our head chef, our sommelier, and also when the dish is on the menu, we ask feedback from the guests. You know, because that is also a limitation as well, feedback, you know? So feedback will limitate you as well, and production as well, like what the team that you have can make as well. So they all things that are moving parts on this bridge between inspiration and action, you know, or creativity. Yeah. So I'm just gonna speak about a few dishes that we have in the menu, and explain a few examples of the inspiration behind the dishes, you know. So this one is a tamal colado, and I'm gonna try to make not a too long story, but this one, the limitation is the arbitrary, right? So I was dreaming, and I dreamed that I was in Colombia, in this restaurant called El Chato, and I was sitting down there, and then the chef, Alvaro, will bring a plate to me, and that plate was the exact same plate that I have in the restaurant, that we have in Cole in the restaurant, the same crockery, you know? And then I was sitting down there, and I was like, oh, how can he have the same plate that I have. It's very strange, you know? And then after that, suddenly, they explain the dish to me, and they say that it's a Mexican-inspired dish. You know, that is a tamal colado. That I always been trying to do a dish with a tamal colado. That is a traditional corn steam cake with that what you do is to mix masa with the corn, masa with water, and then you strain it into a hot liquid, into a hot fat. So because it's been strained into the fat, the texture is like super smooth. So it's called tamal colado, strained tamal. And then suddenly, they explain me that they are doing a dish with tamal colado, that the thing that I wanted to do for years, and in my same plate, and then suddenly, suddenly I cannot see really the dish. It's just like in front like that. And then I go and like I look like closer, and suddenly is this flooring, this like tile flooring. And the floor, beautiful floor, starts to grow, expand. You know, so then you see all these tiles becoming bigger and separating. And then suddenly it was like a whole desert of these big tiles that they are made in this shape of teardrops of different colors. And then there's this like liquid coming down that it was this black shiny glaze covering the whole floor like a wave, you know? And I was like, no. I woke up and then I wrote it down. I have a little notebook close to my house, not close to my house, close to my bed. And then I wrote it down. And then I went with Dan, that is our head of R&D. I was like, Dan, I had this dream, man, of this tamal colado with these things. And then we come out with different ideas of how can we do something like that, you know? So then I realized when I woke up that it wasn't their idea, it was mine. Because I dreamed it, you know? So I wasn't in Colombia in this restaurant. I was actually dreaming the idea, but then suddenly we needed to make it happen. And then Dan found these like teardrop cutters, and then cut the different radishes, and then I made the tamal recipe, and then we used the plate that I dream about. We used that plate, and then we serve it with caviar, and then the dish exists in the menu. Then the next one is a culture, right? So culture, again, is such an important thing for us, and culture is related to the everyday of Mexican culture, Mexican flavors, but also it could extend. Like it can extend. Culture can extend because flavor is really directly related with memory. You know, so culture is a very powerful word. But they can be only words, you know. I think the most amazing thing about culture is when it's directly related with memory, you know. So this dish is tetela. So tetela is a tortilla that we fill with wild herbs in Mexico, or with cheese, and then we fold it in a triangle, and then we grill them in the comal. So then the interesting thing about this dish is that there is different ways to do tetelas in Mexico. And what we do here is to make a mixture of St. George mushrooms and nettles. So if you go back in time here in the UK, in Victorian times, people used to make quite a lot of things with nettles, like one of the iconic Victorian dishes, nettle soup. I don't know if you have tried it, but nettle soup with potatoes, really good. So that one, and also the fact of having asparagus with egg yolk, you know, asparagus and eggs, and also asparagus and egg and mushrooms. That will be a very European combination. Like in Mexico, we will not have normally asparagus and mushrooms. Well, we normally don't have asparagus, even though they grow here. They grow there in Mexico. But then the interesting thing is to fold the tetela with asparagus inside and nettles and mushrooms, and then make a sauce underneath, like a salsa verde, made with wild mustard leaves, and and then we serve it with a cricket sauce made with British crickets and honey and chilies. So then there's different references of culture here. We have the tetelas from Mexico, the nettle soup from Victorian times, but also these like combination of like recent story of eggs, egg yolk with mushrooms and asparagus. But then when you eat it, it tastes like chilaquiles. That chilaquiles is a very, very traditional Mexican breakfast or Mexican dish. Because the combination of the masa and the egg and the salsa and the nettles have loads of umami. Like normally in Mexico, you will have chilaquiles with chicken. So the combination of the umami and the eggs and the masa and the green salsa, it gives you a memory of a cultural reference of everyday Mexican breakfast. So it's a very, there's loads of different things that will represent culture with this dish, basically, you know? It's kind of, if you know, you know. If you never tried chilaquiles in your life, sorry for you, but it will definitely taste like chilaquiles. And then ceviche. So ceviche, So then this one is ingredients. So ingredients is one of the main things that we do. So kind of like ingredient exercise. Cactus fruit, right? So we have these amazing cactus fruits in Mexico that they don't grow here. They are mainly in season in spring, and you have all the cactus plants full of cactus fruits. And then if you think about how the cactus fruit tastes, it tastes earthy, it's a little bit watery. It's not like creamy, it's like quite watery. And imagine like some sort of watermelon vibes in terms of the texture. And then, but very, very earthy with salinity because the cactus, they are in the desert, And then they are bright red, Depends on the cactus fruit. Sometimes they are different colors, but mainly when they are ripe, they are red. So then the question is, how can we do a dish of cactus fruits and cactus, and using also the nopales, the cactus, with ingredients from the UK early winter. So what we do is to use pears that we cook in beetroot juice. So the pears, we steam them in a beetroot juice to make the pears red, and also to add the earthy notes that normally the cactus fruit will have. So you add that. First, we nixtamalize the pears to make them resistant and have the brittle texture that the cactus fruit slices will have. Then we cook them in this beetroot juice, like fresh beetroot juice, to get these earthy notes that are quite intense earthy notes, but balanced with the sweetness of the pears. And those are the slices that we put on top. And then underneath, we make a salsa with codium. That is a type of seaweed from Wales that it has this very, very particular taste as it will be cactus. So we make a dressing with the seaweed, the codium, and pine to give citrusy aromas as well. And we serve it with a hemp seed cream. So in Mexico, normally, different preparations, ceviches, tacos, main courses, they are served with either pumpkin seed sauce or peanut sauce. So what we do and discover with the hemp seeds is that you can, if you toast them lightly, they taste like pumpkin seeds. But if you toast them more, they taste like peanuts. So I wanted to add the peanut flavor to this ceviche. And we roast the hemp seeds a little bit longer, and we make a cream underneath with a little bit of scallops, because who doesn't like scallops? and then we finish with a fermented cured pine cone on zest on top that will bring you, like these beautiful citrusy notes from Mexico that really present in Mexican gastronomy. The interesting thing is that this dish sounds very strange, but when we had it in the menu, there was a kid, a 5-year-old kid, that had the whole tasting menu, and his favorite dish was this dish. And for me, that's like the best thing in the world, because it doesn't matter how many things you do. Like how many, yes, we're going to use this thing that no one used, and this is going to taste like this, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, what we're doing, we are making food, for people. And this kid, he ate the dish, and he loved it. And he came to me and said, this is my favorite. And that was amazing, to be able to, like sometimes creativity can be overly complicated. And you forget about other people, And it's very, very important to keep yourself grounded and use creativity and innovation for just to create good food for the world, So that was good. And then the thing is that I just wanted to finish with something that I wrote down here. So the idea is that inspiration is not something new, Like, it's already there. It's everywhere. Inspiration is everywhere. But you just need to limit yourself to notice and be aware of it. Thank you so much. Oh, really? No way, really? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Santiago, for your talk on inspiration today. Before we begin with our next panel, let's play the sponsor video for this panel, which is Osti. Our next guest is another superstar from Michelin-starred restaurant Col, where he champions the diversity of Mexican spirits. He studied political science and chose to advance his career crafting unique cocktails. He was awarded Cocktail List of the Year at the National Restaurant Awards in 2022. And today he will talk about where do London's mixology bars take their inspiration. Let's welcome Matthias Ingelmann to the stage.
Thank you very much. I try to keep it a bit shorter. I was asked to speak to you today about where London bartenders take their inspiration from. That's based on my experience at Col Mescaleria, but also based on my experience in the London bar scene. And the longer I thought about this topic, the more I was wondering if it's actually the right question. Inspiration is a pretty vague and ambiguous term. By origin, it means as much as breathing life into something. And I think pretty much all of us are, like all of us who work in hospitality, all of us who work in bars and restaurants, who do it for quite a long time, are inspired pretty much all the time. And feeling the urge of like breathing life into something. You walk in the park, you go to the cinema, you're watching a movie, reading a book, meeting friends, going to restaurant, bars. There's inspirations everywhere, especially in like cities in London. There's like almost too much of it. I think the interesting and difficult bit is how do you channel and organize this inspiration? How do you store it so it's available when you need it? And how do you make it reality and not just a vague idea that appeared and disappeared within seconds? How do you remember what you felt, what you heard, what you smelled, what you tasted when you needed, when you want to create the next dish and the next drink? But I think most importantly, how do you communicate your inspiration to your team? I think pretty much all hospitality businesses do consist of more than one team member. How do you make sure that your team feels the same inspiration that you felt in those moments? How do you translate your inspiration into words and feelings that they understand? But also, how do you teach them to translate this inspiration into something real, something tangible, something that you taste, that you can drink, that you can feel, and something that you can sell in the end? So I think the real question that we're having is, how do you translate inspiration into reality? And how do you make your team contribute their inspiration to your own goal? One of the key moments these days is how to keep your team inspired. This does not only refer to like creation of drinks and cocktails, but how do you keep your team inspired to think out of the box in regards to service, events, special moments for the guests? How do you keep your team inspired to improve and question all the little details? How do you keep your team inspired to build the legacy and keep on building that you started in the beginning? I think there are 3 essential steps to get there. Is challenging others to be inspired and to use our and their inspiration. Communicating inspiration. Communication is everything. It doesn't really matter if you're a Michelin star restaurant, if you're a street food joint, if you're a neighborhood bar or a late night bagel shop. Communication is everything. These days we talk of communication pretty much all the time, but mostly about communication when it comes to PR companies, when it comes to social media, when it comes to media, all the outside communication. I think much more important and interesting actually the internal communication. And communication always starts with the leader, always with the people who run the business, the managers, the owners. How do we share our story with our team? And how do we communicate our inspiration? How do we communicate how we got to a certain point and why we got there? What inspired us to do certain things? And how did we use this inspiration and brought it to life? I think there's nothing more powerful than sharing your story with your team. And you just saw Santiago Lastra. I'm working with him since 3.5 years, and I think there's nothing more powerful and inspiring to listening to his story and how he got to where he is now, his path, his challenges that he faced, how he went from being a chef de partie to opening a Mexican restaurant in London, how he created this concept that's called today, and how he felt this inspiration and brought it to life. And I've probably listened to the story like more than 50 times already. And even now, every time I listen to it, it still brings this like initial inspiration and sparkle into me that I felt when I first listened to it. And I feel how special this place is and how much purpose is behind it. And that's the power of the leader who talks about inspiration, who created the concept, who went through all the struggles to make it work. And hospitality is always a business of people, and people are attracted by people. Inspiration is about communication, sharing with others how you go to a certain point, and sharing with others how you develop an idea. We need give our teams purpose to believe in. Why are we doing certain things? What was the thought process behind something? This can't be repeated often enough. Inspiration fades, and we need to renew the sensation again and again and again. We also need to make our teams understand how our inspiration works and worked, and how we brought it to life in the beginning. A healthy business can't be dependent on one person. But you want to create a business that breathes creativity based on the inspiration you injected. We want to get to the point where we can involve our team to get inspired themselves and build the next chapter of your restaurant, of your project, of your business. But to be able to get to this point, we will first need to organize our inspiration, find a structure, create a framework of what we are looking for. Create a framework that the team can use to work on their inspiration. It might sound a bit boring, but I truly believe that there's no creativity and true function and inspiration without having a structure and an organization in place as a base. I think to build a successful business long term, you can't be the sole provider of inspiration. I think a sign for a healthy team and as a long-term successful business and long-term successful team is that inspiration is coming from the inside, by the team, from the team. But for that, they first need to understand the purpose and the reason why we are doing what we're doing, the reason why we're all here. That's why communication is so important. It's like the core of how we get to that. But getting inspired itself is not really helpful if you don't have a structure in place that gives us guidance and a framework how to use this inspiration. To work creatively and get inspired and let this influence us, we need to build rules of what is important for us. For me, one of the biggest challenges has always been young bartenders who join the team, super enthusiastic, and want to get creatively involved straight away. They want to create new drinks, they're super inspired, but there's no base. They haven't understand the basics of developing drinks, they have no cocktail techniques, they don't know about the ice, they don't know about the drinks, the glasses, they don't know about our service standards. And you don't want to break this enthusiasm, but you need to provide a strong background knowledge and techniques. So we're creating lots of training platforms for them. I think one way of achieving this is through building strong networks and building workshops and trainings, internally, but also externally. We teamed up with lots of bartenders, bar owners, bar managers, but also producers, craftspeople, artists, suppliers, and asked them to join us and provide insights into what they are doing, how they run the businesses, how they operate, what are their values, and what are their ideas. They came in to provide workshops, to provide trainings for our teams, and shared us how they use their inspiration, how they work creatively. And we try to understand how their brains and their thinking works. And this in combination with a strong internal training on cocktail techniques, on classic cocktails, round building, spirits, and service provides a strong foundation, which is the key to work inspirational. Based on this, we started training how to use inspiration and how to adapt it to our workplace and the concept we are working on. At the same time, we as leaders need to organize ourselves, work out guidelines, how we want to work, and openly share it with the team. Are there any restrictions, for example, ingredients we don't use, certain ways how we create dishes and drinks? Are there any restrictions in terms of location of the produce, flavors we avoid, spirits we don't use, any restrictions of like we can only use this type of ice or this type of glassware or this type of techniques? Most importantly, do we have shared these guidelines and these restrictions with our teams? Have they been written down, and is everyone aware of that? Because there's nothing more disappointing than listening to your leader, listening to your manager, and then coming up with all these ideas, providing them, and then you just to find out that half of the rules that are existing you haven't been shared with, and being sent back with like to rework everything. And I think another final bit of the organization part that is probably quite often forgotten about is financial knowledge and how our organization works and how financial understandings for what we're actually doing. There need to be an understanding of how costs work, how prices work, and how these influence the development of dishes and drinks. I think one of the responsibilities as an owner, as a leader, as a manager, is to create a framework that enables a team to use inspiration, to unfold and use their full potential, a framework based on training, based on rules, and based on knowledge. And then the next step is how we will be able to use this framework, how we encourage our team to use this framework to challenge and channel their own inspiration. And that's the challenging part. How do we challenge our team to use their own inspiration? As mentioned in the beginning, inspiration is everywhere. And with the right tools in hand, it's easy to grasp. But turning this inspiration into actually a product and into an idea that you can eat and drink, it's a whole different topic. I think there's a way of pressuring the team to bring out the best ideas. Being pressured and challenged to create something, being challenged to come up with new ideas within a certain time frame does help to bring ideas to life. Nothing helps growth more than put aside and put yourself out of the comfort zone and challenge yourself and challenge your own inspiration. And this is based on the framework that we have provided. And obviously we don't let the team alone and just let them do their thing. There are lots of like brainstorming sessions, there are feedback sessions. We sit down with them, we try to help them out. We give feedback, we try to encourage them, and we're constantly trying to challenge the status quo, and at the same time try to challenge our team to challenge the status quo. What are our goals, and how do we question the things that we're doing currently? And again, we need to repeat the first story, the communication. How did we get our first inspiration? How did we got to the point where we are now? And what was the first inspiration between certain drinks, certain dishes, certain ideas? I think the goal is to get to a point that the team is so integrated into the concept that the guidelines for inspiration are so clear, that the story and inspiration behind the project and the common goal are so well communicated that we get to the result that the team naturally knows how to steer the ship and how to use inspiration creatively to achieve our own goal, basically the goal of the person who created the project in the first place. Going back to the initial question, how do you translate inspiration into reality and how to make your team contribute their inspiration to your goal? There are 3 steps. There's communication. We need to communicate our inspiration as much as possible, not only externally, but internally with our team. So we need to share our path, our thoughts, our ideas, and how do we get there where we are now. As organization, we need to create a structure and organization, like a framework that explains our inspiration, our ways of working, as guidelines for our team. What is important for us, and how do we make our inspiration become reality in the first place? And then challenge. How do we challenge our team to take part, to bring in their inspiration based on the structure that we provided, to make them think and like get the project to a level where we have never dreamed of before. And I think all these three things basically are, in the end, much more important than where the actual inspiration came from. Inspiration is everywhere, but what really matters is how do we use our inspiration and how do we get our team to contribute to our inspiration with their own inspiration. Because finally, if our team does the inspiration work because we give them all the tools, all the ways of working, all the instruments, it will give us leaders and managers and owners and creators of the concept a chance to step away and get inspired again, and give us a chance to be inspired, get creative, and then create something entirely new. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Matthias Ingelmann for his speech on inspiration. Before I'm going to invite the next guest on stage, let's watch the video of Caracas, who is this session's sponsor. Our next guest is from Brazil, and his great-grandfather was from Italy. These influences, along with time spent working in Spain, come together in a skillfully crafted and highly original cooking founded on Brazilian traditions. He opened Da Terra with his partner Charlie in January of 2019, and after 8 months, Da Terra gained its first Michelin star. It is our pleasure to welcome Rafael Cagelli to the stage, where he will speak about culinary identity shaped through a sense of place.
Right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Gastromasa, for having me here. I was in Istanbul last year. It was an incredible event, and it's such an honor to be part of this. When I was invited, and I said, yes, we are home, so why not? It's great to have this sort of event in London, actually bringing all the great chefs, international chefs, to London, and it's such an honor to be part of it. So Right, so we're going to talk about, is all good here? Yeah, can you hear me?